Welcome to the Deer Hunter Podcast, a platform created to entertain, educate, and evolve the modern-day deer hunter. Do you do most of your deer hunting in that area?
No. Most of the deer hunting I do is, at least in Michigan, is an hour at least away from me. The closest place I have is 45 minutes.
Do you hunt all over the state?
Or
do you have kind of some places that are within travel distance to your house that are
most of them are pretty within an hour or so, but there are a few that we go to that are a little longer than that. It depends on, a lot of it has to do with crop rotation or how much snow we have in different places, or what kind of deer that we're seeing. Some places are good every 3-4 years it'll produce a good buck that I'm looking to shoot. Sometimes we'll have closer to home, I'll have 3 or 4 of them that I've been looking after. The ones that I hunt closer to home, that I hunt more often, I can keep tabs on bucks from year to year.
Right.
And everybody's always like, "Oh, Michigan, you're not seeing the same bucks all the time." I'm like, I see them year to year. We have an opportunity to pass a 4-point or a 6-point. I'll see them the next year, and a lot of times we'll see them. I have a different criteria than a few of the guys that I hunt with do. So
as far as you're talking about antler size, where you guys are,
I'm not an antler. Okay, it's hard to say.
You guys have different goals as far as what you're trying to.
Even in the group of my guys from Bed to Dead, I have a couple of guys that are new to bed hunting and really new, like never done public land hunting whatsoever, and they're just getting into it. They always hunted their own private. They've had a couple 60-acre plots and then they other permission from other people, and they've always, for whatever reason, they had it in their head that private was the only place that there were good bucks in Michigan on, and plus I think safety had a lot to do with it too for them, and so they wrote off a lot of the public land, and they always ask me, like, "Where are you shooting these bucks?" I tell them, like, it's state land, and they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Yeah, it is," because, and I try to tell them, you're waiting for deer, if you don't have them bedding on your property, to come to you. I'm taking it to them. So there's a big difference in what I'm doing. I have 20,000 acres or 10,000 acres or 35,000 acres that's got at least a couple mature bucks somewhere. I can actually make a game plan and go after them and hunt them, and it doesn't kick them off the whole entire property. They don't just run 3 miles over to the private ground and say, "Oh, well, it's private, so I'm going to hang here." They're not going to do that. They still live there. It's just you have to hunt them a little differently. It takes a little more work. It takes a lot more preparation. And I give it to them, though, because, they do a lot of the, what do they say, game management, and they, for what they do, but they're putting food plots in, and they're trying to clear cut and do everything they can to have deer there, but it's hard to compete against Mother Nature and the ability to have everything you need without doing anything to it whatsoever. So I got it in their head finally. I think it was after I shot my 165 that they were like, okay, maybe we can do this. And I started showing them pictures on my phone of deer that I was passing, and saying, like, you remember last year when I sent you that picture of that 8-point? Well, this is what he looks like this year, and he's still not where, for what I want him to be, or, maybe he didn't grow very much from the year before. Everybody thinks, they got that picture where it says 1.5 old to 2.5 to 3.5, and this is what they do. And a lot of times, 85-95% of the time, that's what happens. But in here, in Michigan, because of many different factors, it's very possible for a deer to be 3.5 years old or 4.5 years old, and he's not carrying a 150-inch rack. He's carrying a 85, 90-inch, and so you commonly mistake him. Say, oh, that's just a big-bodied deer. He's older. He just doesn't have, the genetics, or he doesn't have, the pressure does a lot to him.
Yeah. One thing that I learned in the last year or two, I listened to a podcast that these biologists put out, and deer's antlers are the last thing that they will focus energy towards growing. Mm-hmm. That's like leftover resources.
Well, yeah, because especially a buck, he's expelling so much energy during the rut and everything else. He's trying to put body mass back on first before, to survive for the next year upcoming. So it makes sense. The last thing the overabundance is going to go to the horns.
I feel like it's almost, I don't know. You add in all the food plots and the property management, and you almost make a environment that is unnatural for a deer. I mean, a lot of what you're seeing, take deer ranches. You see those pictures and videos floating around on like Facebook or whatever, and there'll be a little tiny pond with, 300-inch deer, and it's just like it goes to show. But I think a lot of the deer around this state are very representative of what they would be like in their natural environment because, I don't know,
I think soil has a lot to do with it because, the farther south you go, even just look at Ohio and southern Michigan, the very border of southern Michigan, everybody thinks southern Michigan has bigger bucks because there's more private there. Mm-hmm. And that private is as pressured or more pressured than most other public around. They've got 18 guys hunting a 100-acre piece of private, or 10 guys, and it's not it at all. It's soil content. The crops are better. There's way more of them. Just like when you go into Ohio, it's the soil content. Like we're at the very tip of that, where the Mississippi soil, that they're claiming, and that's why a lot of these other states have better growth because their soil is better. I mean, when you start getting past the central Michigan part and start going further north, the soil's like sand. And that's why the horn development it's not as good as what it could be, for other places.
Yeah, so those deer need to focus more resource into survival, and they don't have much left over to put into,
especially after a hard winter. On our winters that aren't hard, like the last couple we've had,
right?
They've gotten better horn development. I've got a buddy of mine that owns, he leases 260 acres in one of the APR zones, and their hard winters. And that kills a lot of deer.
Yeah.
And the coyotes are even worse, on them because of that reason. There's very few, so they're searching hard for food. In the years that the snow is low and they don't have to search or forage so far for food, they have a lot more deer, and they have better antler development, and they've noticed the last couple of years since 2012 when we had that EHD breakout that they're getting more bucks again, and they're getting bigger bucks. And I'm sure the APRs are helping out extremely because, they're noticing them, but they were having a hard time seeing 100-inch deer, and now he's, during the summer months, when they're in there feeding off the crop fields, there's 600 or 700, 130, 140-inch deer on the property with a handful of, 100-inch deer. But obviously, when fall hits, their ranges shift. A lot of it has to do with, bigger, more mature deer or more solitary animals, and you're not just going to keep them in a little confined area where they all have to compete all the time. That's just not going to happen. As soon as they start rubbing hard horns, they start dispersing.
Yeah, there's enough room for them.
And there's food everywhere.
There's food everywhere, and there's not the density of the mature deer where they can get their own area, right? And that's why a lot of the tactics like rattling and grunting,
they don't work really good.
No, because
I've never seen rattling work really good in Michigan, though, to be honest with you.
The only time I've ever heard deer touch horns is either just for a quick second to either push the other one aside, or maybe some very light sparring. But I've never seen a full blown.
I've seen a lot of early October, right before that. That everybody wants to refer to that as the pre-rut, but I think it's really more of the rut when we get to that late October stages.
I would agree. What dates are you talking? I mean,
if it's cold in the 21st of October, it could be the 21st of October. I mean, I'm seeing them, especially the last couple of years. I'm seeing them grunt and chase on opening morning. So I mean, I've seen that the last couple of years.
Sure.
Not big bucks, but younger ones for sure.
Well, I mean, pretty much by early October, the bucks they're ready.
They're ready. It's
so
just
they're
whether
just waiting
the does
on,
are or not.
right.
And if you look at your doe or your fawn births, and you get the deer, that 9-month-old deer, and then you get to 6-month-old deer, if you do the math right, that's 3 months. So you figure October, there's some does that are popping, and that they're mating and they're starting, or at least it's in the air. I mean, I don't personally think that a buck's going to start grunting and making scrapes if there's no estrus out, or they don't feel like it's coming close. They're, from what I've seen anyways, I've seen it exact opposite. I just, and what everybody tries to tell you on the, that they're just marking their territory, and I do understand that they do that, but those bucks are, to me, there's a reason why they're dropping that down and why they're visiting those scrapes and freshening them up like they are, because maybe a doe or two has popped in the area, and it's just what starts it. It's just the beginning, and it may not be what 90% of the deer do or even 50% of the deer do, but you can tell it's obviously starting to come into swing. And I don't know, I have a different view on the rut than what video experts want to tell you.
Good.
So
Stop.
It's a little different.
We're gonna get back into that, but I gotta rewind here just a little bit. Something that you said. You said the way I hunt is a little bit different than the way they hunt. It's not a little bit different. You have to literally you didn't have to relearn it because you started at a young age, figuring some things out that I just started figuring out in the last couple of years. And you and I hooked up through social media. I don't know how did I reach out to you?
You
I found you on Facebook. You know why?
Are you the one that did the podcast with Extreme Whitetail Tactics and Dan them? I'm like, yeah, I
yes.
am. Because there's a couple different people with my same name that are actually on the Beast forum. That's what I kind of laughed about one time. I was like, oh, there's another one on there.
Right.
That's kind of crazy, but.
Well, I had asked Dan a while back. I said, hey, who's a couple good guys to have on the podcast? And he had said Scott Shaw's name, and he had said your name, and that's when I believe the first time I looked you up on Facebook for whatever reason. I don't think I could locate you, but it was a while back. I've been re-listening to the Hunting Beasts podcast. Yeah. I listen to them
Me too.
Pretty much I listen to 1 or 2 or 3 a week.
I do too, especially driving a lot.
Yeah, because I feel like I always pull a little something more out of them every time. There's so much there in the 20 episodes that those guys have, but I re-listened to yours and I'm like, gotta get a hold of that guy, man. And so you and I talked about, I don't know, 2 months ago or so.
Yeah, about 2 months back.
And tonight I am thankful that you made the drive over into the...
Well, I appreciate you having me out. I mean, it's anytime I get to talk whitetail with another guy, or especially in this frame where you get a bunch of people that are going to listen and hopefully get something from it, I'd love to take that opportunity any chance I can. I mean, most of the people on the Beast will tell you, if you send me a message, especially the Michigan guys, I usually respond as soon as I possibly can. I answer everything I can. I do as much as I can. I'm not on the Beast as much anymore with me starting from bed to dead and getting all of that going. But I still try to participate as much as possible, especially on, the forum, the Facebook setup they got now on the Beast, which is awesome.
It really is.
It's just, there's a lot of,
New faces.
There's a lot of new, but it's still the same information that gets spread out there, and a lot of the conversation is always really, really good. And it's guys that have a passion to do, to hunt and to up their game, whatever that might be. It doesn't have to be inches. It doesn't have to be, it could be just killing your first deer. It could be killing your first buck. It could be just trying to understand how deer move, whatever it is that whatever it is that they're trying to accomplish. Anytime you could lend a hand.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a fulfilling thing.
Yeah, and you're a wealth of now. I mean, anytime you and I have chatted on the phone, man, we just start getting deep real fast. And I realized that I had to have you on here, and it's good timing because I'm really, really focused on this season about trying to not revisit bad habits,
It's easy to do.
Real easy to do, right? I mean,
it's
your confidence thing.
It happens even to the best guys who have the best, techniques and strategies, and they're sound in their ways. It still happens, and sometimes you got to go back to the basics and remember. It's a little more commonplace for the guys that practice it a little more and have been doing it for a little while, but you still make mistakes, and sometimes you still have those moments where you're like, duh.
Right.
Like, how did I overlook that? But, I mean, I think that's what keeps us going, really, especially mature buck hunting, if that's what you're doing. That's what I do. And it's every year I can pull something from a hunt from previous and still get schooled by deer that, you think you got them figured out, or you think you got a pretty good, grasp on what they're doing, and you don't wrap a tag on them for the season, and, they're always on the hit list the next year, and they're always teaching you something different, and they're different personalities, even though a lot of them are the same. I always equate them to being like a dog. Really, you got some dogs, when you knock on the door, they come right to the door and they want to greet you. And then you got some dogs that you knock on the door and they run behind their master and wait to see if it's okay. And you got some dogs that as soon as you open the door to walk up the stairs, they're in the back bedroom hiding. And I just think deer are a lot like that. They have personalities, and it doesn't make them any smarter than the next one. I just think it's a personality thing that causes them to be hidden more, to lay down more, whether it's laziness or just I said, like, as soon as they think there's some danger, they hide out and they stay hidden. And those personality flaws are what cause those deer to get a little older.
Yeah, it's anytime a guy tells you deer do this exclusively, it's like you can write that guy off as being credible because they're all so different.
Yeah, you got a few principles that are a lot of the same, but for the most part, every deer has its own personality. You hear Dan talk about it all the time, and I'll second it, and I'm sure there's a ton of guys that will, that every deer tolerates something just a little different. Some deer will tolerate some human intrusion. Some deer absolutely won't tolerate, but just once, and you have to treat them all like that's the case and not make mistakes, and that's hard to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
It's hard to do, but you've figured out how to do it at an extremely high level. I mean, you are, there might be, but I don't know them personally, a more decorated public land deer hunter in our state for your how old?
I will be 36 this year, so I'm 35 currently.
Okay. And you've killed, do you know how many deer you've killed?
Are we talking?
Go ahead and format it however you want.
But you brought you. If we're talking over 100 inches.
Yeah, you made this statement to me. You said, "Hey, I'm not trying to."
Over 100 inches, and we're talking 3.5 year above deer that are over 100. I know I have 15 full mounts on my wall, and I probably got 4 or 5, maybe 6-year-old mounts that are in that frame or bigger. I mean, right now I've been anything under 120, unless it's like a a real big 8 or 7 or something crazy. I've been Euro mounting them instead. The taxidermist bill's getting pretty high. My taxidermist actually loves me, but
I started this year.
I love the look of them. I've
I
got this
do
thing
too, and they don't take up as much room.
well, I
And you
got this
get them.
great idea too that I came with, and I never seen it. Just something I wanted to do because I have my house has vaulted ceilings, and I have one of those big barn style wood in the inside, and that's where all my mounts are arranged. But I was looking, and I'm like, I got all these Euros that are collecting dust kind of on the floor, and I wanted to figure something out. And I actually had my taxidermist make a caster that's about 22 inches on the ground with wheels, and it's got like a grassy bottom. It's fake, but it's got a center section that is a 7-foot old weathered beam, like barn beam. That's like, and it's got little hooks on it, and I hang them all off of there now. So I can hang 15 mounts in one area, and it's just, and I can move it out, and
Totally
yeah,
get it.
it looks sweet. Like it's pretty cool. And then I said I told him to keep the plans because you'll probably make another one for me if I can help it, and then put it there. And I do the same thing with those. Yeah, you look at Dan, and some of the guys in Michigan, in public land hunters, and you go on the beast, and there's a ton of guys that you don't hear their names, but they're elite to me, and they got tons of racks. And I set a goal a few years back, and I just said before I hang it up, I want 50. That's my goal. I'd like to have 50 before it's all said and done. From Michigan, all states. I'm a public land guy, so not one of my bucks have ever been shot off private or some farm
Not
or
one,
anywhere
huh?
else. Not one. And they've all been with a bow too. None of my bucks that are mounted are with a gun. I've got a couple of the Euros that were with a gun, but I'm strictly archery season, and that's my big thing. And I love it. You're so close to the animal. Everything has to go, just like you hoped it would, to score on one. And it's just that up close and personal chess match that you play. That's what I live for.
Right.
That's the thing that keeps me going. So, and I'm trying not to get away. I think I did, I can't say I think I did. I got into the inches game, and it was about inches. It was about the biggest inch deer I could shoot. And after doing that for about 5 seasons, I realized that to me, it's about the age structure of the animal. And anytime you can outwit a 4.5-year-old deer in Michigan, you're doing pretty good. Whether it's a monster 12-point that scores 180 or it's a 107-point, he's 4.5 years old.
Right.
That's a big thing to do. They're not dumb.
Right.
I don't want to say they have brains, but they just don't make many mistakes. And I take more pride in those. My favorite deer that I remember aren't my biggest deer. So, that's just where I've came now.
Yeah, they have brains. They're relatively small compared to ours, but they're focused on like one small task, and that's
surviving.
Survive.
That's
Yeah,
what they're trying to do, survive.
right. They don't have to worry a whole lot about what's going on in the economy or any of that shit. Just stay alive.
Yeah.
And so they get pretty good at it pretty quickly, and in this state more so than arguably any, right?
I've got to see some other states and hunt some other states, and I can tell you, a good friend of mine who's actually on the beast, Andy, he's the one that told me, like, Jay, you're gonna love it if you go out of state and start hunting other states. He's like, I don't want to say it's easier, but it's easier. And I started 2 years ago hunting other states, and it's easier. If you can do it here, you can do it there. It's yes, you have to learn some different terrain, different food sources because it's a different state, and you got to learn your area, and that takes time. But it's easier. There are more mature bucks there than here, and it's just it's just a different, less pressure. And, even though some of the states like Wisconsin has got some high pressure, it's not easy. It's not just like, oh, I say it's easy, but I'm saying easier. But I hunted in Wisconsin twice last year, and wasn't even close to the kind of pressure we receive here.
I noticed
not even close.
That in the time that I've spent on public land over there.
It was not even close. It wasn't even
right.
I didn't have guys walking in on me blowing my hunts left and right.
Stands?
Yeah, it was different. And that was the other thing is I could hunt them in the same principles that I hunt here, but a little differently because I didn't have to worry so much about somebody walking in the last hour of daylight clanking the stand as often, as you would here. And people were generally more respectful too. When I was in the parking lots of some of the public places, I did talk to quite a few guys, and they were awesome. Not one guy was what you tend to run into here. Most everybody was pretty helpful.
Yeah.
And a couple guys waited for me to come back at my hunts and asked me, hey, how's it going? Did you see anything? And, after talking to them briefly, and that was an experience that I was a little shocked on because I figured that my stuff would probably get messed with a Michigan license plate sitting in the parking lot a little bit, because in Ohio it will. A little different there.
Yeah.
They don't like Michigan people too much.
That's one thing I've noticed. There seems to be a general disconnect from a lot of people in our state about what we do have. I mean, just the trash that they leave at the sites and this and that. And like you just said, the way they talk and treat each other.
Yeah, I've never seen, and I'm not down in Michigan. I love my home state, and I do, and I'll never quit hunting it. But the problem that I see with a lot of other hunters is it seems that jealousy or greed, just sloppy behavior tends to run a lot on public land, and you're going to encounter that, and I do think it's at a minority, but it's still there, especially come gun season. People have ownership rights to public land, and they want to tell you where they're hunting and where they're not. And, and I get it because they've got time invested and they're taking time away from their family and they paid for a tag too, but it doesn't have to be that way. And, everybody thinks you're out for their spot or their deer or, to them, it's like asking somebody where they're hunting, not because you want to hunt their place, but maybe you just want to stay out of their way. It's like asking if you can sleep with their wife. I'm not trying to infringe on you, bud. I just want to make sure if you're going to go left, I'll go right, or, I just want to make sure that for me, if you're going to a place that I think a buck has been or I know a buck is bedded,
mm-hmm.
It's already hard to get close to him as it is. Sometimes it's best for me to just stay out of the way and let that person hunt that day or two and give it some time to rest before I try to go in there and make a move. I mean, there's not very many people that are hunting the way that I hunt here. So odds are it's better off for me to do it that way.
Sure.
And it gives that deer security again, or maybe it just leaves him be for a while. And then I can go after them, but it gets pretty rough here. I've had people follow me to my car. I've had people follow me in the woods, 4 or 5 guys walking behind me and talking to me. And, I'm like, so, you guys going to follow me to the stand or, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, we're just wondering where you're going. And I've had to take huge tracks around to a different place to go to a place I wanted to hunt, and I'm never rude to anybody. I always try to be as nice as I possibly can, but it gets pretty rough here,
Yeah.
I don't experience that in other states, so it's
different. It's a lot more so, I think, the central of the state and the lower part of the state. I think once the farther north you go and the less people.
It's a lot different there, for sure.
Right.
Yeah, there's, for the general consensus, 90% of the people are great people.
Right.
But the 10% unfortunately make things a lot more difficult for others. You got guys that, we allow 2 deer, one of any size buck that you want to shoot if you want to hold your buck tags for. And there's a lot of guys that are happy shooting any buck. whatsoever. They don't hunt very often, or maybe they haven't killed very many deer in the first place, or they're just learning, trying to get some kills underneath their belt. And you got guys, walking up to the parking lot, asking them why they shot the baby, and just, I don't know. To me, it's just very disrespectful. Of course, when I see it, of course, it's one less buck in the area that gets to grow to the potential I want to see him to. But it's not just about me and what I want. It's about the state as a whole and what we're allowing to happen. If someone has a legal means to do something, I'm not going to sit here and try to stand on a soapbox and tell you what's right or what's wrong. I mean, that's not my job.
I'm in complete agreement. No one knows the whole backstory to why that guy shot that deer, and I always use this one as an example because this is, I think, a 1.5 year old scrubber,
Could
northern
be.
Michigan.
It's hard to say, you know what I mean? Like I said, it's just hard to say, but I would probably agree with you.
And I hadn't shot a 1.5 year old buck in probably like 10 years. And that was just a late season muzzleloader hunt, nasty conditions, big woods, northern Michigan. I'd never even seen a buck in the month of December in 20 years of hunting. And I was on a muzzleloader hunt, and that was the last 5 minutes of the hunt. And he was chasing does. Like
Nice.
December 18th.
Sometimes it's the moment that,
Yeah.
and that's the thing. If you're happy, I'm happy.
That changed my whole mentality about stuff.
Yeah.
Because even though I was like, I'm trying to grow and do the same thing, take older age class deer, and that's, my primary focus, I was like, on that day, in that moment, I'm like, this makes complete sense. And I got to drag it out with my buddies, and dude, yeah, it was just like, man. And not to mention, 70 pounds of...
And nobody has a problem eating venison. I mean, if you're hunting anyways,
Not around these parts.
I know I don't for sure. My family loves it, so we look forward to it every year.
Yeah, 100%. So, but for the guys that do have those expectations of starting to, I don't know, I guess I'll say grow and hunt older age class deer, it was just the way your brain was working at a young age, or you just started to...
Nope, because how I started out was totally not what you would do to kill mature
Did you learn
bucks.
from your family for the most part? I mean,
my dad's dad was a stump sitter. He liked to be out in the woods and sit the same areas, and if he's seen some deer there, I think he liked the nostalgic aspect of just sitting down and being a part of the guys, getting away from home. Of course, my dad coming up took to hunting, loved it, took it to a different level. He was okay reading deer runs and rubs and starting to get into the scraping and trying to position stands on travel corridors that were heavily used to be successful. And how I got raised was any buck in Michigan was a good buck. So, my dad was probably the best hunter I knew. And I think he went on a string like 20 straight years in a row he shot a buck. And I mean, for our group of guys and most guys around, the guy killed a buck every year. He just was a killer. And, numerous does whenever we get doe permits. And he just, very rarely did my dad eat a tag. And he was just that guy that, and he set up a lot of people on, scouting. And he got into the scouting aspect of it. I think what changed things for me, because I grew up that way too, and I took to it, and I loved every part of it. We were bait pile hunters on travel routes, and I think we were just starting to dabble into the bed. Like why, we would know deer would frequent an area, so we would set a bait pile up. It was legal in Michigan at the time, and hunted them that way. And I think my dad just wanted something else. He wanted something more. And I was the same way. And so we started scouting and hunting a different area, and we started hunting some marshes and some terrain that, we always said like the nasty stuff was where the big ones are, and that's what we equated whenever we did see decent sized deer. They were always in the nastier areas, transition lines and stuff like that. And so we started hunting those more and more and more, and we started seeing bigger bucks, and we were in search of a way to hunt cattails. and my dad actually found the beast. And we were already hunting bedding areas, but we weren't hunting specific beds. We hadn't got that far into it yet. We were playing the wind, hadn't known anything about thermals at that point. We were on to the right things. I already had a lone wolf. I had 2 of them, the original assaults that came out in sticks. Like, I had cut my weight as much as I could. Everything I had was mobile. I hardly took anything in I didn't need. And we were already knew we had to get as close as we could to deer and be as close as we could to what we knew were bedding areas and be in them. Just, I guess we didn't know the specific bedding yet. And then he found the beast and said, dude, you gotta get on, log on the site, make a screen name. And so then I got on, and I don't think I said anything the first 3 or 4 months I was there. I just read and read and read and read and seen all these guys with all these big racks, and they were killing them and we're seeing them, and it just started, a light bulb started going off. Like, we were onto this, just not this extreme, not this, it's perfection really. And started implementing that. And the first year I killed a 132-inch 12. And got the ball rolling, and I had told myself I wasn't going to shoot another smaller one. I just wanted to wait as much as possible, and it took me almost to gun season. It was November 7th, and I shot him. And I remember the feeling that I felt was no one ever shot a buck that big. I'd never seen anybody shoot a buck that big ever. And I really remember the surreal feeling driving home thinking, like, where do I go from here? Like, I just accomplished a goal that I never thought I would ever accomplish. Like, it's a lifetime achievement. And I almost stopped hunting because, you kill the Pope and Young in Michigan. That's the goal for any guy that is out there.
Yeah.
And my dad just kept saying, like, dude, there's, you could always kill a bigger one. And I kept thinking, that's not possible. But
how big was that deer?
It was 132 inches, and we thought before scoring, we'd never. And that was once he was scored, because I had him officially scored.
Was he a 10-point?
He was a 12.
Okay.
And he big deer. Just he didn't have the kind of mass. If he would have had a little bigger mass, he was easy 150. But we thought he was 150, 160 class deer when we first walked up on him. And we were shocked that he was only 132. We couldn't believe it. And I remember telling my dad, like, how big does a deer really got to be a 150-inch deer? Like, holy cow. And so,
what would you assume that buck?
I've looked at him a few different times, and just guessing without, deductions are so hard. Because if he would have had the two on the end, that would have even just been 3 or 4 inches. He's easy 100 inches, I'd say, 110 class. Yep. He's definitely got the frame, because the beams are long, and he's got some good time length on him. He's got solid mass. His brows aren't weak. He just doesn't have the end points. Anytime you have a deer with that kind of main frame and they're got 10 points on them, you're in that 110 range easy without adding longer tines.
Right. So, I had him scored. And when I shot that deer, you see, these are my deer. They're all, a lot of 100, a couple, maybe 100, some 90s and some 80s. But I was like, oh, sweet, that deer's got to be 120, Right. But I had him score as 117.
Yeah, that's what I say. That's what I say.
I start looking at that, and I'm like, God, what the hell does it take 170 inches or something? Jeez.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a big deer, And then I remember going into the next season, I dedicated. Like, I remember, like, I dove into the beast some more, and it just was like, I love hunting so much, and I love being around animals that I just couldn't. I really wasn't going to stop hunting. It just, I remember feeling like, for a couple of days, like, what am I going to do? And I got back into it, and that's when I started targeting specific animals. It wasn't just about playing the bedding areas and shooting a big buck. It was about targeting a specific buck, and that was my next level thing that I wanted to do, was say, I'm going to go after a specific deer and kill him. And that's what I want to do. Not just any big buck that walks by. I wanted to kill one that I had some sort of knowledge prior to season, and tag out on him.
Right.
And I did that the next year. I shot 2 of them. I shot one that was 127, and then the very next day I shot a 140 that I had on camera for 3 years, and he disappeared at 4.5, and I thought somebody took him. And lo and behold, he showed up, and my dad was not real happy with me that day because I cried bingo twice, and he was ecstatic for me, but at the same time, he was just like, come on, because like he hunts so hard, his same way for him. He does a lot of the same things I do. We're a little different. We're a lot more aggressive than he is, but he had wanted this deer. He knew about him too, and we thought he disappeared, and lo and behold, he showed up, and he's 20 inches inside spread. He's got beams that are over 23 inches. He's got 4 10-inch tines. I mean, he's a monster, but his G3s or 4s are really weak, and his brows are only like 3 or 4 inches. So he scored 140, and so I had beat that 12, which was crazy. And then after that, it was just about, every year it was just, and every year since, that's what I do, is now I'm targeting a specific buck, the best buck that I can find in the areas that I hunt, and I'm going after them. I have a top 3 usually every year. Sometimes I get 5, or 4, sometimes it's only 2, and the 165 I shot, he was the only buck I wanted. And the year before, he was bigger. He was mid-170s, a legit booner, and I dreamt. That deer consumed me, to say the least. And I put all the pieces together and shot him in 2015, October 25th, about 20 minutes before closing time, at about 3 steps.
No kidding.
I knew who he was. And my dad, as soon as I called my dad knew him. My dad's like, he got him, because he knew I wasn't going to shoot another buck that year.
Right.
I passed 140s that year and just wasn't going to do it.
Would you say it's been a constant growth in what you've been doing, or is there a couple big things or something that stands out to you from when you're going from, the basic format that most people hunt to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say there's a really big learning curve that took place, because anytime you get into specific bedding and win relation bedding, non-win specific bedding, deer travel patterns based on food sources that aren't just beans and corn, sugar beets, but dogwood, maple leaves. There's a lot of different things. Persimmons, it could be. I mean, there's so many acorns. And then also taking into account pressure, also taking into account like everything you see on the videos that we're brainwashed into believing is how you get a deer.
Brainwashed is a great way to put it.
Well, that's how it is. I mean, because you think it's, when they, I'm not singling anybody out, but, to say we do it just like you do it is a bunch of crap, because, I don't have 500 or 5,000 acres where I'm passing up 150s in a field full of 10 of them, and another 10 120s with 100 deer sitting in a field waiting for a 200-inch deer to walk in that I let live on my property to get 9.5 years old and finally shoot him. And that's a great accomplishment. I'm not knocking that, but for the everyday guy, that's not even close to what we do.
No,
not even close. And so it's a poor representation of entertainment that people get stuck on, because we want to see big buck. That's what it is.
It's entertainment.
But once you get into this style hunting, it's not entertainment anymore. You can't even watch it. It makes you sick, because it's not even realistic. Like, that's not teaching anyone how to actually kill a big deer.
Yeah.
That's not teaching deer movement patterns. And there's some really good guys out there that have a lot of good principles that they put forth on their properties and hunt, and I got a lot of respect for them. It's just a poor representation of the blue-collar guy or the everyday Joe that gets to go out and hunt. And
well, it's more about building an environment.
It's about making money.
Yeah, and it's
that's what it's about. It's about making money for them.
Yeah,
What I mean? It's not about actually showing somebody how to get it done.
Right.
And I think that's why I started doing what I did. A good buddy of mine, Curtis Zabel, he's on, Zabs, he's on the Beast. He started from behind the bow. And then Dan, he does his videos. And now you've got, Aaron Warburton on the Hunting Public and Zach. And reality TV is starting to come into the hunting industry. And it's about time, because guys want to see how you're really getting it done. How do you really kill a deer? How do you really up your game? How do you really improve your chances? How are deer really moving? What we all don't have acreage to hunt. So how can you do it on state land? How can you do it where any guy has the ability to go out and kill a big deer? And it isn't attainable, and it absolutely is, but it takes a lot of hard work. And so, which is why I started from bed to dead, and that's why I do what I do, is because we want to show a true depiction of what real hunters go through every single season to balance a family, to balance pressure, time off from work, every aspect that comes into it. Even the hardships, the struggles. I got into a really bad car accident last year in November, and I'm recovering as it is. I had back surgery 4 weeks ago and neck surgery, and it's put a damper on a lot of things for me. But I think that's what you, me, and the next guy wants to see.
Oh,
something that you can actually, that's why I look at the Beast. The Beast has grown immensely, and it's because guys are sick of bullshit. They don't want to hear that no more. They want to see, how can I do that? How is it attainable? There are plausible reasons, and there are, you can do steps 1 through 10 and improve your chances at killing the kind of deer that you want to kill, or killing whatever it is, whatever size deer, doe, bucks, or whatever, and have a more successful chance at doing it with less hunting seat time, I guess,
You say 1 to 10. Let's get into that. I mean, I don't
my
know that
1
you
to
get
10, my 1 to 10 might not be what everyone else's 1 to 10 is, because
Yeah, but let's do it. Like, I don't know how you want to lay it out, but
well,
where does it start? I mean,
for me, the most important thing any guy could do is know his area. It takes time to learn an area and learn the food sources, learn the pressure, learn why the deer move the way that they do, why they bed the way that they do, and it really take the time to put boots on the ground in the spring and in the winter, even in the summer months, to do your glassing, to do your homework, because your prep time pays off. I probably sit 5 more observation stands than kill stands, and I call them kill stands because they're nights I go in to kill, because I need to see that deer's on his feet, that I need to see he's moving.
your observation stand, describe how you differ those observation from your kill site. I mean, is it something where you have a long range of view, or is it sometimes when you're just out?
Sometimes it's a
break it down for me a
sometimes
little
it's
bit.
a long range of view, a couple hundred yards, or enough where I can see a bedding area that I'm looking over. Sometimes it could be 100 yards, but it's 100 yards in the opposite direction that I'm intending that buck to come from, because I'm trying to gain intel. Like, I know he's not coming my way. I know he's not coming this way. I know I'm not going to blow him out, my exit entrance way to get through there. But I can see if he's there, and a lot of times observation, you don't just have to do the stands too. It's coming in on a hot sign that a bedding area that you scouted and found, a good mess of beds that are buck beds for different winds, and you get in there and you're walking that transition, or you're walking into it, and all of a sudden there are 4 or 5 big rubs that just lit up, and you've got big tracks on the ground leading in and out of it. He's probably home. You know what I mean? He's probably home, and it's a good opportunity to you've known the bedding there now, because you went and did your homework, and now you can start hunting your way, stacking those beds, is what Dan always says, him and Andre. And it's just putting yourself in the, the best way to hunt. If you've got 5 beds in that area, you don't want to go in and just try to hunt the best bed and blow the other beds because you could be in them. You want to be able to hunt your way into the bedding, but also every time you do that, you're upping your chances at him being in that bed, but you're also sitting observationally, is he there? Is he home? Is he in that area? And a lot of times, because you can't see high visibility in the places that I hunt, my observation stands aren't 300, 400 yards away with a spotting scope. If you can do that, that's great. But that's not feasible for a lot of places I hunt. And sometimes they are. Sometimes I have places that I hunt that are, I can see 400 or 500 yards. And so I sit back in glass, and I know I'm pretty much, I have my bow with me, but I'm not in the kill game. You know what I mean? For me, I'm more along in the, is he there? I need to confirm he's there, and I need to know that he's moving. And as long as he's moving and he's there, that's a lot of it. And sometimes they're there, they're just not moving.
So go back even farther to how, are you doing your scouting in the spring? How are you beginning to locate these?
I'm scouting all season long.
Is it just thick area? Like, how are you finding bedding?
Well, I use a lot of aerial maps now, especially after learning how to read them, and in some of the topography maps that are out there, the topos, and you can read points in places, and every map that I possibly can get my hands on, I like to go through them as many times as possible, Google Earth, as much, and I get to read the terrain, find bedding features that I know commonly are bedding features. I like to map out all the public ways in, look to how other hunters would hunt it, and basically as soon as, when I'm December hunting, if I'm still hunting in December, I'm looking at bedding. I'm looking at where a deer yard up for the wintertime. So if I ever have a buck tag available come December, I'll know where deer yarded up in this area and why. A lot of the good bedding areas in the swamps go void during those times because there's no food. So, you got to find the food. And then as soon as season ends, I might take a week or two to regroup and get some energy again, but I'm right back out there if there's not a heavy snowfall, going through those bedding areas if I haven't got all the pieces together, and I'm like trying to give myself, okay, why did they bed this there? Here this year, am I jumping deer up in this bedding area where they still here come December? There's a lot of different aspects to it, that I do. I found shed hunting is virtually impossible for where I hunt, just because there's so many coyotes, there's so many rodents, and on top of that, most of the deer migrate towards the private where the crops are come that part of the year, and they're dropping their antlers there instead of on state ground where I can hunt. And you find them here and there, but nothing major like you can in other places. So I scout pretty much all the time.
With maps, both maps and boots on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
Talk more specifically about features. Like, what are you looking for?
Transition lines, points. When you look on some of the, I'm a big swamp marsh hunter, and so I'm looking for wheels on the spokes. You can zoom in on Google Earth and see runs, secluded islands, a lot of different points that you can find. You'll see a lot of, like on the swamps, you'll be able to see if you zone in on a swamp, the transition line is going to show you some sign. And then you start looking for those points, those isolated, patches of dogwood,
That's
those
what they
isolated
like,
islands.
isolation, right?
Oh, they're secluded. They love, anytime they're going to bed where there's no human contact, there's no human interaction, there's no scent in the area where he feels safe, and where the wind and the thermals are at his advantage. And that's what I've found a lot of is deer like to bed, at least the big ones that I'm going after consistently. I find that the best wind beds are where they're at. Like, yes, they're going to be in those secluded areas too.
Because they'll just move any younger.
They just, I've seen it numerous times where year-and-a-half-old deer comes in the morning at 7:30, 8 o'clock, and he beds down. And all of a sudden I see a 2.5-year-old come in, and the other deer comes out the other side, and he doesn't come out. And then shortly after, a bigger deer comes in, or even 1 o'clock in the afternoon, he comes in, lays down. The next deer, the younger one, comes popping out, and he don't come out. You know, and it happens.
That too. I've watched them physically walk up to them, push them out of their bed.
Just nose them right out of the bed, and they go. And a lot of times those bucks are already in those beds, those, more mature bucks, before daylight. So, I don't hunt a lot of mornings until it gets to closer to the rut time, and then I start hunting mornings more, just because usually, in my opinion, when that cold weather snap changes, it just does something. That last couple weeks in October, usually that's when I kill most of my big bucks.
When?
Is them last, October 15th, 17th through, Halloween. And, it's usually, for me, at least it has been the last few years, in that time frame is when I'm killing most of my mature bucks. That's when I see mature buck activity pick up, where October 1st, he might have got up on the bed 20 minutes before daylight, and he didn't move far enough for you to kill him. He's moving far enough to kill him now, because he's got another thing on his mind. Whether it's freshening his scrape, or food sources are getting a little different, they're changing, or does coming into estrus, he's overlooking doe groups, and they still bed in the same areas. I'm just finding that they start moving a lot more. You start getting more daylight activity, and they make more mistakes.
And that's when everybody says the October lull is, right?
Yeah, and that's what gives me. They're always like, "Oh, it's the October lull," and I'm counting more bucks by far the last 2 weeks in October than I am the first 2 weeks in October.
The lull as much as it is the deer have just readjusted their patterns.
Well, in Michigan, this is what you got to remember.
Pull that up. Just there you go.
You got to remember that we have an early ewe season, and we have an early doe season now. Those deer are in pressured beds October 1st.
Yeah, right.
They're already on high alert. And you got all the other guys that are scouting and
hanging
blowing up the woods
and
September 15th, 16th, the first week of September. And them deer are already in their pressured beds. It's a 100% guarantee. And that's one of the things I've learned about every area I've hunted, 100%. And that's why I say the number one aspect to me in my top 10 is knowing your area. You have to know your area. It's there's no ands, ifs, or ways about it. If you don't know what the area you're hunting and why the deer are moving there, I mean, you're pretty much hunting blind.
Is that just, it's kind of a mindset thing, right? It's kind of the realization of how tuned in you have to be about it, and you just keep paying attention, keep paying attention, keep paying attention.
Every year you're learning, because the food sources change every single year, and you'll notice some crop rotation that they do the same kind of things when it's this or when it's that. And you start to learn those bedding areas well enough to know that, like, okay, this one's going to be smashing this year because of this reason, and you can almost bank on a big buck being there.
Yeah, that's something I realized when I spent some time in the woods with Dan, and he showed me a lot of his stuff, and I obviously see how decorated he is.
Oh, yeah.
But then I look at it about the areas that I hunt and some of the stuff close to my home, and I'm like, that's not going to work. Well, there's going to be a tree stand there. That's why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if that tree stand was removed that it wouldn't work, but there's going to be a guy there already.
For sure.
So I'm like, I'm going to have to get even a little deeper on this.
Yep. It happens, quite frequently. That's one of the hardest parts of hunting Michigan public land, is that you're competing against other men too, a lot of other men, and they might not be doing it like you're doing it, but they're still seeing the signs that you're seeing too. They don't put the pieces together like you are, but that doesn't mean they're still not going in those areas and hunting them. I hate using the word incorrectly, but in my standards, incorrectly. So it's a little different, The other part of it, that top 10 thing, I guess, or however many it is you got to have an area that's holding mature bucks if you're going to kill a mature buck.
Can't kill one
if Stanley said it all the time. I remember it. I never forget. He said it so much on the beast. It is unbelievable. He kept saying, "You're never going to tag a big buck tagging little ones." And it just got me thinking that, you know, if you're hunting an area that doesn't hold a mature buck and you're hunting your ass off, there's no mature buck there.
Right. It's going
For
fishing
what
in a
reason?
fishing
Yeah.
in a
What
pond
you
with
know,
no
you're
fish.
expecting a big one just to come out of nowhere, and sometimes it happens during the rut because of the ranges, you know, that we have. But in all honesty, you need to be where they're at.
So how are you figuring that out?
Well, season to season, if you know your area.
So you're
like you
looking for
do.
bedding areas
Yep.
first and foremost.
And
but
you're
then
looking for the sign. You
are
know,
you-
the sign will tell you
Are
too.
you going into the bedding areas to find out if there is a big buck in the area, or are you utilizing other?
Yeah, I mean, you do. You go right. I mean, you can dig right in there because you need to know the beds specifically, anyways, and how they're moving. But you know, you're looking on the ground for tracks. You know, you got 4-fingered tracks, or even from last year, if you got a 3.5 finger track or a 3-finger track last year, that deer's 1 more year older, so he might be what you're looking for. And 4-finger tracks definitely will tell you. Big rubs will tell you. You know, that doesn't mean he made it that year, but that means big bucks use that bedding, and they will bed there. So, you know, you can pretty much bank on if there is a mature buck in the area, and it's an area worth looking into. That, you know, you're finding his beds, you're finding those rubs, and you're finding those big tracks. It's worth, you know, either putting a camera outside the food source away from the bedding, maybe doing some sitting in the early summer months, but trying to locate, you know, to see if you got a big buck coming out of that bedding area. And then you're in season year to year. You know, the bucks that you do pass are the ones that you do see. You know, if you hunt an area and you've seen 4 or 5 good bucks in a season, well, you know there's big bucks reside there, so it's worth giving it a chance for. You know, if you hunt there for a season after doing all the scouting and, you know, you don't see a buck that you want to take, or, you know, you don't see the sign popping up, don't waste your time there. You know, you can, it's not that you write it off forever, but, you know, maybe keep your eyes on it later on, but you need to be looking for an area that's going to have the kind of deer and the caliber range that you're after. So, you know, and that goes 2 and 1 are like hand in hand to me. If you know your area, then you know the deer that are in the area. And if you know the quality of deer that are in your area, then you're already you're in the game right now. Okay, so there's big bucks here, and I know the area and I know where they bed. So now I need to start putting the other pieces together. So
We got to take a 2-second break because I need to get a cold beer and use the restroom.
Good.
And normally I think this is where a lot of podcasts would run an ad, but since a lot of the guys
ads.
that listen to this show have a Patreon account,
Okay.
they actually pay, you know, some guys pay $10, $15, $5 a month and provide for us to be able to continue to do this. So it's
that's
cool
awesome.
as hell.
Well,
So I don't have
thank
to
you
run
for
an
that.
ad right now,
That's
but
nice.
we are going to take a 2-second pause. And we're back. Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to those guys that do that for us.
Oh, for sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, because I don't want to have to. I want this to all be about learning, similar to what the Beast has been, you know. But we still recognize companies that I feel are doing something different. I always have been a big fan of the little guy.
Yeah, me too.
So anytime I find what I deem like a little guy, man, I get all excited about it, whatever, and I like reiterating. And when stuff works better than what some other stuff does, and it's maybe not as popular.
That's part of the same exact thing with From Bed to Dead. What I'm doing is it's no sponsorships. We don't promote, you know, get paid to promote somebody's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will tell you is that what works is what works. You know, that's just flat out how it is for me. If it works, that's why I use it.
Right.
I'm not going to say such and such rest is the best or such and such bow is the best. Such and such arrows are the best. Broadheads, whatever it is.
Well, isn't that part of the reason?
You know?
The thing you were talking about earlier at the parking lot, the competitiveness about guys.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is that, and it's the industry is like pinned us against each other. Like, you're a Matthews guy, I'm a G5 guy, I'm a Hoyt guy.
Yep.
it's just a weird little thing, right? But it's just human nature, like competitiveness or whatever, and you get in these little cliques and groups. But I've noticed that, like, since I started paying attention more to this space, I'm like, it doesn't help that the industry makes this a competitive space, guys versus guys, when we're all have like this same goal that we're trying to work towards,
Right.
this bigger picture or whatever. I don't know. It's kind of weird, but I didn't want to run sponsors either. But I also, it's hard to sell on my wife. Like, hey, let me pay to do
Right.
this. Like,
Right.
what's this charge on the credit card
Yeah.
for a hosting site?
I know.
Every month.
I understand.
So I'm trying to figure out a balance and a way to go. I want to be 50 in doing this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I want to be doing it as long as I can for as long as I'm able. That's the goal.
Right. Pick your mic just up a touch there. Yeah. You
We
can
good?
bring it up just a little bit. There you go.
Awesome.
Yeah, these things are a little bit directional too.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, perfect. But let's get right back into where we were.
Okay.
I got a cold beer and I feel much better. I see you're eating something and I was too.
I
I was
was.
starving. My stomach was rumbling, dude. I haven't had anything to eat.
Yeah, well, the way down here, I wasn't about to stop off anywhere because I knew better.
So, we're talking about locating big deer. And so one of the ways you're doing it is getting into the bed, looking for big tracks, visually seeing them. I mean, is there anything else?
I mean, rub size has a lot to do with it too. I mean, that's a big indicator, of how big of a deer is in the area. And even last year's, it might not be exactly what you're looking for, but it'll let you know the kind of caliber deer that are in the area. So if you've got some to keep an eye on, if you start seeing some pretty good rubs, 2.5-year-old or waist high, they're getting to that point. Every year that goes by, they grow mostly. So, you can keep good tabs on them. But 95% of how I don't say just determine whether or not how I want to hunt an area has a lot to do with what I seen the year before.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that.
Yep, that's exactly how I determine an area is what I seen the year before. And one of the areas, the buck that I shot the last buck that I took, the area that I hunted in, he was really good buck for the area. One of the biggest that had been taken in that area that I've ever seen, and that's what kind of prompted me to go after him. And my brother and a friend of ours had seen him and hunted him the year before, and I kind of made it my number one buck to take. And there were bigger deer in other areas that I knew of, but this was like a once in a lifetime deer for this area. And so I gave him pretty much every bit of energy I had, and I knew he was in the area, and he popped up. A big rub popped up in an area that is high traffic for people, and I knew a lot of people that had hunted there probably seen it because I did. And it was a tree that was probably about your leg diameter, but it was absolutely just shredded. I mean, up to your chest. So I knew he was there, and I already knew where he was bedding, and I knew most of the pieces of the puzzle. And I sat back and hunted observation stands numerous times until I seen him make the same mistake about 2 or 3 times. And then it was basically wait for the right conditions. I knew I had the right spot located. And the very first evening I was there, he came out with another 8-point that was about 110 class or so. It was a 2.5-year-old. And he was at 22 steps, but I couldn't get a shot at him. And he wandered up about 40 yards or so and then popped out, and it got too dark to shoot, and I had to watch him walk by me as a blob, like within bow range.
Damn.
But he didn't know I was there. That was a good thing. But it also showed me that the tree that I did pick the first time was just a little off. So I changed probably 70 yards over or so, and it was right in the same area that he kept coming out at. And we had a really bad snow, got really cold last year in October. And
Yeah.
it was freezing. And he did exactly what I thought he would do, and he came out, and I had a 32-yard shot at him. And when I drew back, I mean, it was snowing hard, and I drew back on him, and he disappeared in the cattails so quick. I mean, it was just, he was gone. It was like he was there and he was gone. And I
caught you drawing?
No, he just
moving that quick?
I mean, he didn't stop. And there, I second guess myself because I do stop deer here and there. But just this deer was so close to the private, and he was betting on the private, but he was using a strip about 100 yards of state. And within, if you shot him, he wasn't going to run onto the private. I mean, if you made a bad shot, maybe, but I knew, you could take him out. And he was actually heading back to the bed at about 5 o'clock. It was a big snowstorm that hit, and I basically banked on the fact that I thought he was going to go in that bed and ride the storm out. And I knew I had to be back the next morning when the storm broke. I had to be in the stand. And I rarely hunt the same stand exact setup, but I didn't move my stand. I just waited till he went into bed because I knew he wasn't going to come back out of there. It was still about a half hour of daylight. I started packing up my stuff slowly, and I got down when it was getting about about dark. Got down and crept out of there, and I have a specific entrance strategy, and I try to use water as much as I can, or a creek, or something that they don't cross, but that can, rubber boots are a huge thing for me. And I got out of there, and I got back in that stand a good hour and a half before daylight the next day, and he, about 8 o'clock, maybe 7:45, he came up out of that bed, got up out of that bed, shook himself off, and walked right under me at like 10 feet, and I shot him. And my brother was hunting with me, and he actually went up to the car because it was so cold. I mean, even by that time, because we were there an hour and a half before daylight, I was wiggling my feet in my stand well before daylight. And I come walking back up and just had my bow with me, and he was already in the car warm, jumped out the car, and he knew. He was like, "You don't get out of the stand this early." And he's like, "You must have got him." And I said, "Yeah, I did. I finally got him." And when I shot him, he was so close to me that, I don't know, he might have went 30 feet and fell over. I mean, I got to watch him right there expire. It was a very cool experience, but it was such a release because he was the one that I was after all year. I could focus my efforts to some bigger deer that I wanted to get on too, but he was the one for that area that I really wanted to get out of there, and he ended up being a really big 9. Every one of his tines are super tall. I think the shortest one's 9 inches, but his brows are 9 inches. So he had some huge brow. Just a really big deer.
Nice.
So I was super happy about him.
Do you use cameras at all to locate? I
used to start
this a little bit, but I don't really remember exactly.
I used to quite a bit. And I only set them up on the food sources, like the big crop fields in August. As soon as I got about August to, end of July, August, I started putting them up to get visuals on them, and I knew kind of what bedding areas that they would frequent based upon the food, what places they were visiting. But I've never got into like putting them in the beds. I did once. It worked out pretty good. As far as like seeing the bed and seeing the deer in the bed and seeing how often they came in, and what times they were coming in and out of there and how long they were staying, that kind of thing. But I quit using them because I hunt year to year, every year. So for me, I don't really need to see him and pictures of him. I'd rather have him on my wall. And cameras let him know you're there. Unless you're dedicated to leaving a camera up all season long, I don't understand the purpose for me of the camera to get a picture of him next to him. I mean, or educate him. I don't want that deer knowing I'm even in there. So for me, it's not something I've gotten into, the last few years. Now with us doing, my own show now, and own thing, we thought it would probably be best to maybe start setting them up on the edges of the crop fields to give people an idea of pictures of them before, and see them so people can have a visual aspect of it. But for myself, I don't really, it's a waste of money for me because they're expensive and running them is, and there are other things that, one camera, it could provide me a week of gas to get back and forth out in the woods. So for me, I'd rather not. And I guess I trust my ability and what I've seen from year to year and what I'm seeing, to bet on myself, I guess, instead of a camera doing the work for me.
For guys that do want to run cameras, that do want to see those
There's nothing
pictures,
wrong with that.
Yeah, but you don't want to damage and you just touched on both things, and I'm in complete agreement. There's two things you can do. You can run them on food sources far away from where you intend on hunting, right? Mm-hmm. Or you can leave it for the season.
Yep. And another thing that you can do too, if you're hell bent on running a camera, use your rain days to your advantage. If it's raining, instead of a day of looking at like you can't really do anything.
It's got to be raining pretty good too,
it's
right?
got to be a good rain, but go in there and swap out an SD card if you want to, if that's what you want to do, or hunt it. And when you hunt it, on the way to hunting it, pull the SD card, swap another one out, or whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, there are ways to efficiently and effectively run cameras. Mm-hmm. It's just for me, I'd rather not and put my efforts into something else instead.
One little trick that I found, and it doesn't apply to public at all because you can't do this in public, but on small pieces of private where you have the ability to, if I'm going to go out there and swap a card, I take a chainsaw with me and I cut some stuff. So I try to, first of all, I'm letting every deer for a mile know I'm there, so they're not caught off guard. When I start getting close to where I'm going, I'm firing that saw up and just letting them know I'm coming. And I'll do that as I go through the woods and get closer, run that saw, let them know. And then when I get where I'm going, I'll cut some stuff. You got the bar oil and the smell of the fuel, the fresh cut wood. I mean, I don't think they make them. Yeah, it's different than walking up and smelling a metal tree stand that you hung, and they've identified that I've seen and smelt this before, and maybe I need to stay away from this, where I'm just trying to camouflage what I'm doing.
Right.
Just trying to outsmart their, like we said, their brain's this small.
Right.
Ours is bigger, but they work completely different. And the smell of the wood and everything, if you drop a couple tops or whatever, the deer are going to be actually drawn to it versus when I'd go just change card, for a week or two, you'd have very declined.
Well, that's
and
the
negative. You'd have seen negative.
That's the other thing I seen too when I ran cameras is that it took a good 3 weeks to a month before I was starting to get mature bucks on the camera, and then anytime I did check the camera, I was noticing a decline in mature buck activity where my cameras were, even when they were on the food sources. So I just, the least amount of knowledge that a deer has, or the least amount of ability it has to smell me and remain comfortable and confident that the area that it's moving through is void of human presence, the better it is for me.
Right. So like I said, and that goes to like if I have one on a field edge or whatever, I might run the card all summer, and then when I go in there in the fall to put a plot in, that's when but no more than that really, because they know, especially the bigger ones. They just figure that stuff out. They have a negative negative impression about it. And I think even that black light, the infrared, complete infrared, I'm pretty sure they can see that.
There's enough pictures out there that prove that.
Right.
So,
well, here's the thing. If you run 2 infrared cameras on one another, you can see that. It's just our eyes can't pick that up. And I don't know how game eyes pick it up. But, yeah, I've seen enough pictures to know, too, that.
Whether it's the sound of the camera snapping or the red flash or black flash or whatever it is that are on them, I mean, cameras are a great way to inventory deer. It's just not for me, and I'm not saying I never used them before or that, like I told you before, even with what we're doing now, like, I'll probably use some, but I don't use them
Right.
and for killing purposes and how to kill a mature buck or a buck I'm after.
Sure. Well, I've found one thing for me is hunting, bigger tracts of land where I don't, have to travel to get there. So, I can set 4 cameras up and kind of cover 1,000 acres a little better than I could because I just don't have the time to be in that area. So remotely, they're nice to be able to cover big, expansive.
We got to get you reading those topos and those aerials, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah, it saves a lot of time. I mean, I hunt a lot of public land out of state. Never been on the land sometimes before. Don't have the time to travel 8 hours to go scout for a weekend. I do in Wisconsin, but, some other places. And, I mean, if you're reading those aerials and the land, you can cut off a lot of fat that the deer, that's not where they're going to be.
It's hard to go into depth about that without actually physically looking at maps, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because I can look at a map and I'm like,
it's an expansive conversation that you probably could dedicate a single podcast to,
right.
And maybe even a series of it.
But it's better done with visual.
Oh, for sure, because then there's questions that you're going to ask for,
right.
And people are going to ask, and I mean, if you've ever, and I'm sure you have, but you get on the beast and somebody posts an aerial on there or a topo, and they're asking for how do you know this is this or this is that, and it can get, once you pick up the gist of what it is, it's second nature, but to first start out, it's it's a lot to learn, and it's best done with someone being able to point stuff out, saying, okay, look at this is what you're looking for, or this is, look at the public access routes and everything else. Like, you can go through a ton of maps with somebody to help them be able to walk into an area blind, and get into deer. And that's where, like, my out-of-state hunts, when I went to Wisconsin, I scouted it for 2 years before I ever went there, and did a lot of aerials over and over again. And then finally I decided to break down and go for a weekend, and I went and scouted. And those areas that I picked out, there was some awesome sign there. And so I knew it was going to be good to hunt there. And I spent most of my time going to those areas when I went there for a week and hunted, and I hunted pretty hard for a week, and I saw a lot of really good deer, and didn't pull back on anything that I wanted to take with me, but I saw a lot that I would have been happy to take with me, but it was just the nuances of learning the area and walking it boots to ground. Like, yes, the aerials and the topos will get you where you want to be, but that doesn't mean they're going to get you right where you need to be. And that's where you got to put the boots on the ground, and then plus learn a couple seasons into hunting it. After hunting Wisconsin for the year that I hunted it, I mean, I'm not going out on a limb and going to shock anybody, but you're going to see a video of a buck getting shot this year. I'm 100% positive with that. I mean, unless something weird happens, yeah, I'm pretty sure of it.
That's when I've noticed a lot of my own personal growth is when I look at maps, and I'm thinking about that, observing the area, and then I actually go in there and see what's happening. and then maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm thinking, why was I right? Why was I wrong? And then you can start to replicate that, look at another map and be like,
That's a great way to practice. I mean, really, to be honest with you, that's, your local area around you. Grab a aerial of the lay of the land or a topo or both, and mark some of the places that you think are going to be good places, and then go put boots on the ground and see if it's translating over to your hunting.
right,
And then you get better at it, and you start, there's other things you'll see, subtle indications on the maps that all of a sudden start showing you things, and then also one thing that I've learned too is there's a lot of things that don't show up on the map that once you're there you see, and you're like, well, this makes perfect sense. A subtle draw maybe for a rut hunt or a funnel, that's not like, hey, here's a funnel. It's more like you see it's a subtle thing, or a faint rise in elevation that wasn't as drastic on the map that you might have thought it would be, or the way it showed out, or maybe the lay of the land changed from the year that you looked at the map you did. That's even with Google Earth, it isn't always. They update it so often, so sometimes
right.
unless you're keeping year-to-year photos of it, you don't see the year-to-year change. So sometimes that makes a big impact in what you do.
How big does it vary, like as they get older, in what you've seen? Like, how large are these areas? I mean, how different can they range?
Well, I mean, because some areas I hunt are specific, like a bed, like one bed, or
Little,
just a small, could be a 20 acre, could be a 10 acre, could be a 5 acre, maybe even a 1 acre place. And that's more for like an individual deer specifically. Like you can go after some of them that way. But your best areas are primary bedding areas where there's a lot of beds. It's not just one bed. It could be a 50 acre size. It could be bigger than that. I mean, it just depends. Yeah, there's good bedding everywhere. And those are the harder ones to nail down to me, because there's more bucks in them than you got a lot of satellite bedding. But they're also easier in a way because you can hunt your way from bed A to B to C to D, and pretty much push everything to where you want it to be, and hope you made all the right moves.
So I mean, a 50-acre thing is pretty large. I mean,
Yeah.
But it's still more isolated than what the options are around it.
Yeah,
For them.
because it's okay. I've got a couple. I'll give you a couple examples. I've got one bedding area that a big mature buck. There might be 2 or 3 big mature bucks that use this bedding area every single year, or we'll just say the most mature bucks in that area use this area every year, and I wouldn't say they're adjacent to one another, but they're pretty close. They're spread out probably about 500 yards apart, and one is probably 80 acres in size, and it has specific clusters that they're bedding in. And the big bucks could bed. He might bed on one of them one day, the next day the other. A lot of it has wind, but a lot of it, I think, it's just personal preference to where he wants to bed that day. But it's his like core range. And every single year, October 1st, I set this bedding area. If I go in there, right now, I tell you, I could take you there October 1st this year, and before dark hits, we'll count 7 bucks that comes out of this bedding area. Now, whether one of them is going to be what you would classify as to be, something you want to take as far as shooter, just depends on whether one in that area, I guess, got big enough or made it through the year. And then right, pretty much to the west of it, there's another area just like it, like it looks almost identical to it. And pick your choice if the wind's right. I've shot some good bucks out of it, and it's one of those, if you find a primary bedding area like that, it's really, really good. And a lot of does use it too, and it's slammer midday in the rut.
So in our state, with the pressure that we have, have you witnessed more bucks and does bedding in closer proximity because there might not be as much available space, or they still say, because I hear Mario and Dan talk about doe bedding areas, buck bedding areas, and I've witnessed bucks that I've seen bedded pretty isolated, like,
They
but
can, but depends on what time of the season it is.
because a lot of times I'm walking into areas and there's deer going everywhere.
The closer the bedding area that I'm telling you about, there'll be any point in time there's a big doe group that's always in there, or a couple of doe groups that are in there, 3 or 4 does a piece, but there's always a bunch of bucks in there too because it's a larger bedding area, and it's just the best bedding around. Like, it just is. It's the best bedding around this area, and it's really hard to get to. It's really remote. The thermals are kicking to their advantage almost every time. And it's really hard to get in there without kicking a ton of deer out of there. And it's taken me like 3 or 4 years to really figure it out. But doesn't matter if it's rut or first of the season. The bucks are there. They're with the does. I can't say they're laying right with a doe,
But they're in the proximity.
but they're in the area with them.
Right.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's very common for 4, 5, 6 does to come out of the bedding area, and a half an hour later, here comes some bucks. I mean, it happens all the time. I see it quite frequently, actually. And you would think, because the closest crop field is a mile away, them deer are not making it to that crop field in daylight hours. Not even close. They're coming out of there, and they're staying and eating the dogwood or like the grasses around the area right there. In that, just where they bed and the patches that they bed in, it's like a lot of dogwood or red brush, stuff like that. They're getting up out of there, moving, within 100 yards, but they're taking their sweet time, and they're feeding till dark in that area, completely not even going out of there. You are not seeing a big buck or even a small buck leave that area and make it to that field edge by daylight hours, not even close. Now, you can go there later, and they'll be in there at midnight, 1, but they're not in there. They're not in there even an hour after daylight. It's just not happening.
Right.
And then when rut comes, or pre-rut starts happening, those bucks just travel back and forth between those 2 bedding areas like clockwork. They'll bed in the strip that overlooks both of them, and in whatever way the wind's on, he'll be bedded, wind to back, waiting for something to come back and forth between the 2 to intercept it. I mean, honestly, it's almost a full, if you know what you're doing in that area, it's a foolproof setup. I mean, it's scary. It's almost a guarantee for a good one if he's living there. And last year there wasn't anything worth shooting in it to me. I seen a couple 100-inch deer, but nothing that I wanted there. But this year, yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Nice.
I know it is. I mean, it's guaranteed. It could be, but as soon as it gets close to being, when it gets cold and the food's gone, you'll be lucky if you find a deer in there.
Yeah.
You can walk through the whole entire both bedding areas, you ain't even kick up a deer. It's weird how that works that way, but it is. But they're there from October 1st to late gun season.
And they sit pretty tight.
Yeah.
Unless otherwise something happens.
Now they move you can't get in this place because of red brush. There's no trees to sit in. It's all red brush. It's so thick that I wouldn't say you have to hunt the outside edges, but you have to hunt like pockets between red brush to red brush, and you have to be careful when you go in there. But I mean, they're in that red brush moving around.
So it's still essentially a pinch point.
Oh,
but
yeah,
a pinch
for sure.
Point in a bedding.
Yes, which is like, to me, is like anytime you can find something like that, that's awesome. And the thing is those deer, you do see deer, mature bucks will hold to the last hour, but I've seen mature bucks at 3 o'clock in the afternoon walking around in that thing, just back and forth and wandering, or they'll go up somewhere and they'll bed down, and then they'll get up, and bed another place, and then till they get antsy enough to get up and come out of there. I mean, I passed up a buck that in gun season there that don't know too many guys that we're going to pass up, but I just kept thinking, was it going to be next year? Because he's going to make it. It was like November 20th, and he was a stud for 3.5-year-old deer. He was easy 110, 115, good buck. He's only a 7.2, so I said, well, I want to see what he gets to next year because he'll be a 4.5 for sure, and he's going to make it. For the most part, nobody goes back in there. They can't. I mean, it's just too hard to get back in there. It's a long, long ways. That's one of my longer setups, but it's so worth it. I still get pissed making the walk because you got to take a couple breaks.
I mean, a mile or something?
About 2.5.
Really?
Yeah. It takes it's over an hour just to walk in it, to get to where you got to go. And that's just like that's easy, the easy walking, and then you got probably a good 30 minutes of nasty. But the great part of the spot is there's this nice creek that goes through there that you literally can like duck in and walk right up to the bedding area almost. So they never even know you're there.
There's no opportunity very little opportunity in this state to go the traditional method of hanging stands before the
I wish. I mean,
it's a lot of work to
plus,
mobile hunt, but that's how you do it, right?
Oh, for sure. I take my stand in and out every day with me. I have Lone Wolf. I mean, all my stuff is, and I'm not big. I'm not saying I'm naming a brand, but I'm not trying to push anything specific because I've used Windwalkers. I've used APIs. I've used every stand out there imaginable, and it's just so far, at least until Dan's stuff gets out there for the public, it's just a foolproof setup for me. It's quiet, it's easy, it works. There are some flaws to the setup here and there, but for the most part, it's the best setup that I've found, and I'm one of those guys that if I'm killing big bucks and using something, unless something comes out that changes the game, I mean, there's no real reason to change.
I wonder if those guys are actively working on anything.
Lone Wolf? I doubt it. I'm just saying, I mean,
it seems that way.
I doubt it because how long has it been since they've come out with anything else? And I personally, and we've asked this question numerous times on the Beast, how in the hell do you make a 7.5 pound stand and now your stand's 10 pounds? We're not talking about a pound difference. We're talking about 2.5. And 2.5 is a big deal to me when I'm carrying a lot, like a long ways going in. And I have the originals still, and I keep up on them. I have all of the,
so there was a point when there was, what?
They were 7.5 pounds, the original Assault. It was 7.5 pound stand. I want to say that's probably without buckle weight, but that's what the stand used to be. It's 10 pounds now.
Right.
Just
something that they changed in the material use or something.
I mean, there's a pretty good article write-up, and Dan did a pretty good explanation on it, on the Beast.
Okay.
And about it, but pretty much they decided to go cheaper.
Cheaper materials.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I don't want to get into bashing anybody because it's not it. I love Lone Wolf stuff.
Right.
But it's just,
I'll say it's,
why in the world can't you duplicate what you did 10 years ago or 15 years ago?
That's why I asked you, and it's a constant thought in my head, is because they've been for a long time the most popular.
Oh, yeah.
I would think they'd maybe be working on
something. I mean, the same thing like XOP, the Air Raid. I think that's what it was. It's supposed to come out with, or the Vanish. I want to say it was supposed to be 7.5 pounds or equivalent to that. And I'm not 100% sure because I haven't really. I got a couple buddies that have XOP, but they're not the Vanish. I think it is.
Yep.
So I don't know much about that stand to say, but you can definitely tell DeQuisto's name is on that. Because it looks just like the Lone Wolf, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean,
I'm saving my pennies for Dan's setup. I've seen it. I've held it.
I mean, so have I. I seen it 2 years ago when I was in Wisconsin, and he was still working on it and showed me the blueprints and everything. Well, I mean, it takes a long time to perfect it, but I'm telling you this, the guy. I'll go ahead and say it. I know nobody else is going to go out there and say it, but I will, and it's just because his wall speaks for itself. He's the father of bed hunting, and he's the one that started everybody, teaching everybody, and he's been nice enough to share all his knowledge with so many people, and so many great hunters can look back if they take their own pride out of the factor, and they can look and say, yeah, Dan Infald is the one that really progressed me as a hunter. And a lot of guys will, and you see it, a lot of guys give a lot of ultimate respect to Dan for that.
For sure.
But I don't think I've ever heard anybody go out and say that, but I will. I mean, and I'm not affiliated. I don't get paid from Dan or anything. It's just the guy's the man.
Yeah.
When it comes to that kind of stuff, and
he's a great mentor.
Dude, he's a great man in general. He's just a great guy.
Right.
I mean, the guy would give you the shirt off his back. Now, he is, he's a character, you know, to say the least. And he's one of a kind. And that's a thing that you find with most of the guys that are really good at what they do. They're one of a kind. They're great. They're, you know, there's something about them that's unique. They have a charisma about them that just draws you to them. They have a motor that just doesn't quit, a work ethic that's just outstanding, and usually they're great people. You know, they'd come help you if they could in a heartbeat without expecting something from you. So for me, I owe a lot of thanks and gratitude for what Dan's done, and so many people that's contributed on there that, you know, I'm not afraid to give props where it's due. And, you know, even though I think some people might look at some of the other guys that have come to the beast and started doing the reality tactics part of hunting and showing people. Mm-hmm. But I think that's the ultimate respect to Dan, personally.
Sure.
Because we're keeping what he's teaching everybody alive, and we're getting it out there and showing that more people can do it and do it good. And then plus, you know, show a different place. It's not just Wisconsin. It's Michigan. It's Iowa. It's Kansas. It's Texas. It's, you know, whatever state you're hunting, it doesn't matter. You know, whether it's hill country in Kentucky.
It's an evolution of a culture, right?
And it's just something that I feel like some people might look at like we're trying to duplicate what Dan did, and it's not that at all. We're giving Dan the ultimate gratitude. I'll tell you right now, in almost every aspect of a lot of what I do, I refer to Dan a lot because that's what I learned from him. And I always want everybody to know that, you know, without him, he was a major role in my progression as a hunter, just like my own dad was. And I could still text that guy up right now and be like, hey, I got a question for you. And I mean, usually within an hour, he's answering me.
Yeah.
You know, and that's something to say to me. And, you know, that's why my show, that's why what I'm doing, you know, our video comes out in 2019. It's called From Bed to Dead, and it's for that purpose specifically. It's, you know, from the time they get up to the time they eat an arrow. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? That's just what it is. You know, and we want that. We want everybody to understand, you know, that's what it is. We're not trying to step out and say, hey, we're the people that started this and this is what it was or whatever else. Like it's not about that. It's just giving proper respect where it's due and honoring what we learned from them.
I love it, man. It's such a value.
Oh, it's huge
to the hunting
free.
Community.
It's free for anybody that wants to learn it. It's free. He's not charging you for it. People are like, oh, like the videos and stuff. They you know, oh, he's, you know, I mean, do you know how much money goes into those? Like he's losing money.
Time.
He's losing money. Like that's our whole thing. Like I'm doing a DVD. I'll guarantee right now I'm going to lose money. But it's not about that. I don't care about making money. I care about getting the information out there for people. I care about people seeing Michigan holds great deer, and you can. Like it takes a lot of hard work and perseverance, but it's possible. And there's some principles and tactics that we use to get it done. And I might not do it exactly like Dan does it, but how I do it works for me.
I'm in complete agreement. I mean, it's the big reason why I knew I had to have you on here, because our brains work similarly. I mean, I've seen some of this play out and thought in my head the same thing. And then when I talked to you, you reiterated it at a even higher level than what I had thought about it. And I was like, yep, I'm on the right track here.
Oh,
I
for
just
sure.
need to keep going, but it's awesome to see this cultural side of the hunting thing grow, because the industry side of it has robbed everyone of the woodsmanship and the thinking about the little things and slowing down and saying, hey, we have an easy fix for that.
Yeah. Well,
It's $5.95.
it's just like, yeah, and it's just like Dan always says all the time. It's like the pixie dust aspect of, the hunting industry is about making money. That's what they're about doing. And whether it's the new grunt call that came out or the new scent lock suit that, you're trying to say is scent free, even though 100,000 guys have tried it on in the store, and your dryer isn't even going to get close to heating up hot enough to activate the carbon. You know what I mean?
You know what Dan told me? He said, he said, I ran a scientific experiment on scent lock. He said, I farted in the pants and I still smelled it. He said, if you ever want to test scent lock, he said, then you have a grown man fart in your face wearing it.
Listen, I'm going to tell you something. That's Dan.
Yeah.
That is 100% Dan, though, because that's just something that he would say to make you. And you know what? He probably did it. Yeah. Like, that's the funny thing. It's not even a joke.
Yeah, he probably did.
He probably did it. Like, that's.
Nope, I can smell it.
No, for sure. I could see that happening 100% with him. But, I mean, he's right, though. I mean, like, even with the guys I've got that are on, my group right now, like, they were all like, oh, yeah, I got something like this, I something like that. And I'm like, if you play the wind and you play the thermals and your exit strategy is good and your entrance strategy is good, it doesn't matter.
So I have a thought process on scent lock. And here, particularly in our state, I don't think there's a lot of times where deer aren't smelling people, because they're smelling people very commonly, but their senses are so significant that they can identify that a human is of a distance where it's not a threat. Because, right, I mean, subdivision deer, the deer across my street right now, if the wind was blowing to them, they'd be smelling me, you, and my barbecue, right? But they know that we're a safe distance. So
they know the difference between scent that's supposed to be in an area and scent that's not supposed to be in an area.
And so here's my thought process on scent lock. Does it reduce if the system is done correctly? I'm sure you're familiar with John Eberhard. He goes to
the guy has killed a lot of great deer.
He goes to the extreme.
It's confidence, though. You know what I mean? That's a lot. He's confident in that, and that's what he uses. And I'm not gonna knock him for it, because I've never done the scientific research to tell you it works or it doesn't work, or it reduces the amount of replicated odor, or it stops a fart from smelling, or whatever it might be. I don't know that, because I've never practiced it.
My thought process is that the deer still smell you. There is still odor, but they smell it at such a lower percentage that they deem you a distance that's far enough away for them to not have to be concerned about you. Not immediately, at least. Or your scent stream is just this small and John's got that lucky for that long. But I've been in that guy's house. I've seen what he's got going on.
He's got some great deer.
I know where he's done it.
Yep.
And you do too.
Yeah, I do too.
And you're
as
like,
I said, yeah, and that's, I respect the guy. Obviously, he's gotten a lot of really good deer. I'm not going to say anything about John whatsoever. He's a great hunter. I mean, and he's tried helping the general population on many different aspects of it, and he believes in what he uses. And I think sometimes that's a lot to people, whether it's the same arrow or broadhead or whatever. He just has confidence in that system.
Sure.
It works for him, and he believes in the principles, just like Dan believes in his principles of bed techniques and winds, thermals, playing them. You don't have to be scent free. You just got to make sure that the deer never smells you on his way from bed to you to kill him. And
So even at a high level, there can be different ways.
I mean, well,
Some of the principles
I mean, that's
are.
the thing. People, there's many ways to skin a cat.
It doesn't seem like there's that many ways to kill big deer in Michigan.
Michigan's, I mean, any state's tough on public. Most states. You know what I mean? Like, for the most part. Like, it's not just like there's a 140-inch hiding behind every tree
I talked
for
to
you
a
to
guy
shoot, you know?
just this week who said he went hunted Pennsylvania last year, and he said, "I'll tell you, Pennsylvania seemed easier to me than here."
Well, Pennsylvania
And-
used to be a really, really tough state, but they've come a long ways the last few years. You know what I mean? I've never hunted Pennsylvania, but I've done enough research in Pennsylvania that I can tell you that they're starting to see some really good deer. You know, and I think they're implementing a lot of really good stuff there. So I can't exactly, you know, I can't get specific about Pennsylvania, you know, as far as how they are.
Me neither.
But-
All I can do is say this guy told me so.
But I can tell you this. You see guys every year going to states like Pennsylvania, like Ohio, like Wisconsin, like Iowa, like Kansas, like Missouri, like Kentucky, like Nebraska. You don't hear them coming here.
Never. None of them.
You don't hear them coming here.
Which I kind of like.
It's not that. I mean, I don't even care if they do because, I mean, it's just a no one's planning on coming to Michigan to come hunt. For the most part, like you hear guys, you know, there's a few guys from the Beast that have hunted here, but it's not an every year stop that someone's coming to hunt
I
here.
think if people are going to spend
for
money to
amount of
travel
time.
to hunt, they're
But
going for.
Okay, and I'm from Michigan, and I'm telling you, I hunt out of state. There's a reason why I hunt out of state. You know, if you want to kill big bucks, you got to go where there's big bucks. There's a reason why I'm picking the states that I do, and then I'm hunting them like I do. And it's not that there's not big deer here, but big deer here, 100 inches is a big deer here. Okay, there's a reason why it's commemorative bucks of Michigan to get a 100-inch deer here. 120-inch deer is on a different level here. Now you go to Wisconsin, and 100 to 120-inch deer could be a 2.5-year-old deer. Legitly. Right. And it usually is. There are a lot of good deer there. Big deer. It's different there. And it's whether it's the regulations, whether it's just the you know, the hunters, genetics, whatever it might be,
right.
It's better there. Iowa, same way. Kansas, same way. Missouri, same way. All these other states that you know I'm hunting and talking about listing, it's not Michigan. Come to Michigan, hunt Michigan's public ground, kill big deer in Michigan.
It's not a
that's the challenge that I would say to anybody that you start reaching to a point where it's easy to you. Come here, give it a try. And I'm not saying like the first just 1 year in season, because I went to Wisconsin for a season and I didn't shoot a buck, but it ain't because I didn't see bucks that weren't worth shooting. It wasn't that I didn't see bucks that were the very first night I went there off scouting, I passed a 110-inch deer. 10-point come in. I think he was a year and a half old, honest to God. It blew me away. But I passed him. He come right in, right where I thought he was going to come in. He came in. And I'd scouted it before, so I had a pretty good idea. That was, from that area. But, it's just different there.
Yeah.
And I I guess I respect that there and what they got going on. And I'm not ready to shoot a deer that I can shoot here, if that makes sense. It's not worth my tag, and I don't need another buck on the wall to vindicate what I'm doing now. To me, it's not about killing as many deer as I possibly can anymore. I'm about helping others now, and friends of mine. I got a daughter that's 15, will be 16. Her first 2 years, she shot 2 bucks, and she's gotten progressively bigger. She took a 6 her first year and shot a 8 last year, and now she's telling me, Dad, I want one as wide as the ears, and pretty much telling me she wants a 100-inch deer. And then I got a son who just turned 12, and it's his first season this year, and he's, of course, he wants to kill a big one, but at the same time, he's he wants to kill a buck. He wants to be successful his first season. And my dad's never shot a 100-inch deer. I'd love to see my dad shoot a monster for Michigan. And I got the guys that I'm working with this year too. And, for me, it's just I have a different mindset, a different goal this year, than I have, last year it started. And I don't know if you paid attention to the beast at all, but I think some guys got sick of me sending kill photos of people that I either hunted with that scored, spoon-fed, or helped, I guess, because it seemed like everybody that I took last year was successful.
Oh, shit.
And oh man, my buddy of mine shot his first 100-inch deer in Michigan. My brother shot 2 of his 2 biggest. He shot one that was 124 and the other one that was like 123 and 7/8. We measured them ourselves. I mean, we don't score them anymore as far as like sending them in. My daughter shot one. We called him Bubba. I guess 4.5 years old, and he's got a double main beam. So I mean, it was a good buck. You know what I mean? He's a good one. You know what I mean? He was just she wants something a little bigger this year, but he was still like really good for a deer. He just wasn't one of those monster racked 4.5-year-olds that you see, just a huge body.
Sure.
And like I said, just it seemed like I was taking a picture for somebody last year, like every other day, it seemed like, and I was setting them up, and I got more enjoyment out of that, which is why I'm into what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's something to be said. They're learning, and then when you get to a point where you really, really nail it down, and then when you get to that point, then you can start teaching.
I want to share it. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, just that's what Dan's doing too. You want to share it, and that's, I guess I get more.
That goes for everything.
Enjoyment.
I mean, not just hunting.
Oh, for sure. Exactly. And that's kind of it is. But I'm like, and that's the thing is when everybody sees how detailed I am about it. I have folders that have maps in them. I have folders that have year to year what I seen, what wind direction it was, what time of the day it was. Like I have stuff like that, like written down. Like every season, it's what I do, and I go over them. I have one map that's laminated that I can use a little, erasable marker on, and I'll use that for the year, and I erase it all over again the next year, and start putting pins in places and dots and writing notes to myself, and sometimes going back through it because you can't remember everything, and you forget 5 years ago what you did exactly, and so, and that's what I think everybody started to see, like with me, is how much hard work and how much work actually went behind it, how much scouting went into it, how much boots to the ground went into it. A pair of boots, I don't care what brand they are, I don't get more in a season out of them. There's no way. Don't care what they are. I think Irish Setter gave me a new set of boots every year for holes in them because they have a warranty. It's the only reason I use them is for the warranty purpose of them. They're comfortable and they're good boots, but if you get a hole in them, no questions asked, take them back. And that's the reason why I use them, because I get a hole in them.
That's the same company that owns Red Wing.
Yeah.
Red Wing,
yep.
Right?
Yep. And I wear them out. Just wear them out. Boots. As much tread as I can off of them. Start the season when they're newer. They climb up hills great. Towards the end of the year, they don't do so much. You do more sliding on them, you know what I mean? Right. And that's the thing, though. But that's how much time and effort that I'm putting in, and I'm constantly, talking about whitetails. I'm constantly talking about movement. It seems like I'm constantly looking over aerials or maps, plans, going through what I did last year, trying to duplicate it this year or make the necessary adjustments to get closer. And I got unfinished business in Wisconsin, I'm telling you. Like I went there and I had an idea of something in mind. I'm not changing that, but I needed a good season of really getting to know the area first and putting boots on the ground and scouting and looking over everything. And this is the second year, and hopefully most everything I've seen still replicates itself into this season as well. And I now have to do some changing with some patterns and stuff, but I have a really good idea of the bedding that was there. And twice I came 15 minutes away from shooting a couple really, really good bucks. What I went to Wisconsin for, and just couldn't get it done. Just with just a, maybe I wasn't aggressive enough when I needed to be because I was still learning, but the adjustments will be made this year for those places, and I'm super excited because I got the new camera, got everything ready to go, cameramans for the thing, got the new RV this year to go out there and stay, and it's definitely gonna be something. I can't wait. Like, I'm excited for it, and put what I've learned here there.
Sure.
Because it transfers, state to state. Because it's a lot of the same terrain I'm hunting, swamps and bedding.
When you have gotten to this point where you've identified these areas, you've identified there's deer in there, how are you hunting them? I mean, is there a different approach, or is it a similar approach every time? Are you just trying to get as close to their bedding area as possible on a corridor that you've identified that they're using to come in and out?
Okay, well, like with Wisconsin, I did a lot of walking. A lot of my mornings are not hunting mornings, but I was walking constantly. Like, not that through the bedding areas, but like the transitions around, and what I thought would be the travel corridor from food to bed, and backtracking a lot till I found bedding. And then it was trying to read the sign around that the best I possibly could, and then hang stands, I guess you would say, like on the outside, hoping to catch a glimpse, maybe see a chink in the armor, or for the next hunt so I could make a move, maybe 50 yards, maybe it was 40 yards, maybe it was 20 yards, maybe, whatever it was to try to close the deal. And there was so much area that I was trying to cover and get to know that I never threw a multiple hunt set at the same place. And the very first night I was there, my brother missed a 140-inch buck, real nice 10 that came out, and he said that his release had been messing up, and he had a backup release, and he forgot to oil it because apparently it was drying out pretty bad. It's one of the older style True Fires, and he didn't oil it. And the first night in, he drew back on one at like 15 steps, and it wouldn't release. And when it did, it was the arrow took off on him, and he never went back to hunt that buck again. Never even tried that deer. He said it jumped 10 feet and like stood there and then just kind of walked off and like went after a doe or whatever it was that he was after. I don't even remember now exactly. And I kind of left it be for a couple of days because, I wanted to know. Like, I kept telling him, like, get back in there, dude. Like, I'm telling you, if he's in there and he was bedded there, and, he came out 2 hours before daylight out of the bedding area. My brother seen him, didn't see him get up, but he seen him just pop out, was what he said. He said he just popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, dude, he was bedded on that point, And the funny part of that story was we both went separate ways and somehow ended at the same spot. And he was already in the tree, and I come walking up, like looking on the ground, and I was like, oh yeah, I was getting ready to set up there.
That's
and
funny.
He whistled, and I look over, and he's like waves at me, and I'm just like, and he's like, we would find the same spot, and I just started laughing, because he hunts like I do now, and so I waited a couple of days, and he wouldn't go back in there. He wanted to go other places, and he was seeing a ton of good bucks. And the last night, I finally was like, are you going in there? Or are you not going in there? And he's like, nope, not going in there. And I was like, fine, I'm going in there. So I got my stuff. Wind was great. And I kind of did a little bit of, I went in early, but I did a little bit of scouting to see if I could maybe refine what had happened. And right about where he was, maybe 50 yards from where he was, there was like a small little bottleneck that you probably would have missed if you wouldn't have actually went looking. And there were like 6 scrapes that were size of wash tubs. Just that stunk right from the bedding. And I was like, parking now. Sat up. And I sat up because they were so They were like every 10 yards underneath, and it was just I've never really seen anything like that specifically, but I knew that he would be coming into there. And about 45 minutes before daylight, he came in with another buck and 2 does. And I sat my stand so that way I could reach almost all of the scrapes, except for there were 2 that I couldn't get to. Not that they weren't in the range, but just there was so much foliage, like, overhanging branches and dogwood in there. And he sat at the far back scrape, which was like 36 yards from me, for 40 minutes, freshening up a scrape. And I had to watch him at the last day close there, sitting in that scraping and scraping and pissing and scraping for 40 minutes before he decided to walk by my tree at 15 steps in the dark. And that's how my season concluded there. And I was just like, I should have been here way beforehand. And I told my brother, I was like, dude, you should have been. That deer was killable. That deer, he was there. He never left. He didn't even know my brother was there when he shot. He didn't have any idea. There's no way he could have came across the boot prints because it was in a swamp. There's just no way. And it was off an isolated island that we found. Just no way. And that deer, he's probably alive. I'm sure he is. And it's one of the places I'll be going. I mean, I know he was a hog. I mean,
right.
he was a solid 140, easy. Great deer. And that's the thing with Wisconsin, too, is the size of the deer there. The mass on them. It was a refreshing experience, but it's a lot of what I used here in Michigan there.
Dan I know Dan talks that he's more of an evening guy.
Yep, me too. Same thing.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of mornings. Every once in a while I do, but for the most part, I mean, you just let them get there to lay down. You can sneak on them easier and get closer in the middle of the day when the birds are chirping, a little bit of wind gust, whatever it might be, in the daylight, seeing where you're going, than you can if you try to get in there early. And either if you do beat him back to bed and you get in there an hour and a half before, what if he walks by you 30 minutes before legal shooting light and goes lay down? Then what? You got to sit there all day long or all morning long hoping that he doesn't catch your wind and bust before that evening? Because a lot of times morning hunts, the wind isn't consistent with an evening wind. It changes. I mean, what's the point? You know what I mean? I mean, that's for my purpose. Unless you're sitting on the bed or on the J-hook off the other side of him and you got that pinned down and you can shoot when daylight hits, you are close enough to the bed that you can shoot him in the bed when he's laying there. What's the point? Sleep in. Get rest. Go in there refreshed with a good mind frame where you can take your time, get in there and set up and have a way better experience and a way better hunt and up your odds, because you will. You don't blow them out. And if you do blow them out, it's because you rushed yourself. You went too fast, and you shouldn't have went too fast. You should just took your time. Be quiet, take your time, and you can make a better planned hunt than walking in, fumbling in the dark. And I don't care how good you are. We all can't see that great, even with a headlamp on, where you're going and everything perfect. And how many times have you sat up? I can tell you I have done it many, many times, sat up in the tree that I thought was right in the dark, only to realize when it got daylight I should have been 20 yards over, and it cost me. And in the rut, I will hunt the mornings. I'll hunt all day. Some hunts, I'll hunt all day long from morning till dark, because you never know when they're going to get on their feet. It could be for whatever reason. And I have noticed between 10 and 3, I see a lot of mature buck movement in that pre-rut stage, from October 25th to, November 7th.
What you just said about them getting back to bed before daylight.
Yeah.
I think in part they do that anticipating that they're going to see and locate hunter movement in and out, potentially. I mean, a lot of stuff happens then. It's not just hunter movement. It's doe movement too, right?
I think a lot of it just, deer are not, I won't say nocturnal, okay, because they do move in the daylight, but I think they just do it out of safety and security.
Right.
For purposes to get in there and in the cover of darkness to slide through whatever it is that they're going to do and just get set up before daylight hits, because they know when daylight hits, if they're still in the field, it's too late.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's too late now. Now they're going through the woods where predators can see them clearly. There's no sneaking. There's no nothing. You know, and I just think it's personally done for that reason. I mean, I can't sit here and tell you that I know
But they
the
don't
exact
like
reason.
to lay all day. Right? I mean, during the rut, especially, they get a little antsy. So that's what I've seen, too.
I mean,
is
yeah,
that
they
late-
reposition. That's I'll tell you. Everybody says they don't just lay down all day long and not get up at all. They'll get up, stand in their bed, pee, poop, whatever it is that they're going to do. They might even get a drink or stretch. They might reposition 20 yards over in bed or 10 yards over in bed. But for the most part, like, they're pretty lazy. They're not getting up and moving long distances. If they do, it's because of a wind shift. It's because of maybe something blew them out of the bed. I mean, I've seen raccoons crawling up a tree or squirrels come down that will jump a deer up and stand there and hear something because you don't know what it is 100%. I've seen them lay back down once they see it's a squirrel, and I've seen them take off running like it was a man. So, I mean, there's a lot of different factors to me of why they do what they do. And which, to me, is part of the reason why I was saying that for the nighttime hunts, it's so much easier going in a nighttime bed because there are other animals moving around. And unless a deer identifies, smells you, sees you, he doesn't realize exactly what you are walking down that thing. He has no clue what you are.
Unless you're clinking metal.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Unless you're doing something that's odd, out of the ordinary, but just footsteps, slow, they're alert, but if you mask your movements or try to do the best you can to keep in your distance, they don't know if it's a squirrel or if it's a bird or whatever, 100% what it is. So they just don't all of a sudden just flee the area unless they hear that clank or see something.
That buck?
Yeah.
When I got in on his bedding area, he heard me. And he stood up. But I was in marsh grass, to hear and some drop timber and whatever. And he's looking like this. And, I'm just frozen. And then after a minute or two, he looks down, maybe licks his shoulder or whatever. He's not intently staring
he got
at
comfortable.
me. So I'm watching him, and then he turns sideways and he looks at something or whatever, and he's still like looking, but yeah, he gets more and more comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, man, he knows I'm here. He's paying attention to me.
We know something's over there.
So I got down and I took my grunt call and I hit like a tending grunt, and I just started raking stuff, breaking branches. I hit a doe grunt, and I wanted to disguise essentially
what you were doing,
what I was doing.
Right.
And he's looking. And it's all way too thick. Like, every time I pulled the scope up, I couldn't even find him. But I'd pull the scope down, and I'd look, and I could find him through this stuff,
Right.
And so finally, after I stopped, he laid back down. And it was dry. I knew there was no way that I was getting in on him without him hearing me.
Right.
But I had a light wind in my face. I knew he didn't smell me. And I figured, man, I'm just going to disguise what I am over here. And that was enough to get him to not leave. He bedded back down. I waited 30 minutes. And I started moving in his direction again. And it wasn't until I was 35 yards from him where he jumped up. And he ran out 40 yards, and he was probably 70 yards from me. And I shot him with the gun. And I was just in my head, I was like, I would have never done that, ever.
Right.
But Dan's like, don't sound like a human.
But what else did you learn in that situation? It's real. It's going to be, and when I say it, you're going to be like, yep. You found a good bedding area.
Yeah.
And a good bed.
Right.
100%.
Right.
So next year, you can check it.
Oh, I checked it
what I mean?
all
Yeah.
this winter. I mean,
and that's what you should. And that's I've got 2 on my wall right now that I was setting up, and I got second stick. I was wrapping around the tree, and I could see the bed was 72 yards away from where I was. I could see the bed, and as I got up to the second one, I looked over and I could see a rack laying there, and it was just white as white could be, and I was like, whoa. Like froze, slowly got down. I had a good wind. I mean, that's the reason why I was hunting it that way, because where I was, the wind was great for me. And it was early. It was like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I think it was opening day. And it was one of those two bedding areas I was telling you, the ones that come across from one another. And I literally just took all my stuff, laid it down, I was in a short sleeve t-shirt, just a black one, and I threw my camo jacket on, threw some face paint on real quick, grabbed an arrow, grabbed my stuff, and slowly started weaseling up the run, the exit, or how he exits out the bed right to where it was. And it took me probably an hour and a half to cover 40 yards. But I got to where I was about 35 yards away from him, and he wasn't even picked his head up to move or anything. And then I could see him, as I could start to see the shape of him, and he was actually sitting kind of like wind to back, basically. And I'd kind of like snuck around a little bit, so I had the wind was like a just off wind for me, perfect. And I kept saying, okay, because there was like a tree that was up about 15 yards in front of me, and I figured it was about 20 yards from him. And I said, but if I could so I could like sneak behind the tree to go, I could get to that point. I'm like, he's dead. I mean, I could kill him right where he's at right now. I just couldn't see his whole body. I could see the back of him and his head. And I said, if he goes to stand up, I mean, I'm going to whip one back on him. And I already knew that he was 35 yards, so anything in, it was good. And I took my time and got all the way to that spot. And it was water that was up to my waist, and some of it that I like slowly crawled through. I ruined an iPhone in the process, and I got all the way there, and he was still laying there, still looking the other way. And I had to wait for about, I don't know, a good hour, and he finally stood up. And when he stood up, he stretched like a dog, and when he did, he got one about 2 ribs back. Didn't even know it hit him, and he didn't even run or anything. He just turned and looked like nothing happened. I could see blood pouring out of him, and he maybe walked 5-6 steps and just fell over. And what's crazy is I was like, I couldn't believe it. But this bedding area is a great bedding area, and I was just like, wow, that was awesome. I never killed one in its bed like that before. I'd killed one on a mid-morning hunt. It was raining, and I got up on my stand to do some scouting. It was pouring, and I actually caught a buck cutting across to an area, and I watched him bed, and I snuck around him and made a sneak on him. And when he got up, I shot him and did that. But when I got on the other side where he fell over off the other side of this bed, it was like a small island that he had popped up on, like a pothole island. I swear it on my life, I got up on the other side of it, and I was like checking him out, like, oh, it's cool, grabbing him up. I was like, that's awesome. I looked over, and 40 yards away was another buck bedded, looking the other way, like looking that way, and I snuck up on him, and he was a 2.5-year-old 10-point. He wasn't what I wanted, but he would have been a great buck the next year. I mean, that's why. But I could have shot him. I was 15 steps from him too, and could have tagged out opening day right then and there, and could have shot. He was almost a 100-inch deer. But you could tell he was short nosed. He wasn't but he was right there with him. And my dad, I didn't know it, but my dad was off in the way and kept wondering what in the world I was doing, because he just seen me walk after I shot him. He said, I'd see you walk up 100 yards, and I'd see you stop, and I'd see you take a break, and he said, I'd see you go back to 100, and he said, and I'd see you walk up 100, and I said, kept seeing doing what I was doing was I was dragging that deer 100 yards, floating with him, and then I'd go back, grab my bow and my stand and everything, drag it up 100 yards until I got to where I could get some help at, because it was a long ways back in there. And he came up, and he was like, an hour before dark, he thought I ruined his hunt, and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I'm dying. I'm like, you got something to drink? I drank all my Gatorade. And he was like, yeah, I got something. And he was all, and I was like, and then he seen my hands, they were all bloody, and he was like, oh, that's what you were doing. It makes sense now. And then he said, let me see him. I said, he's down at the other side of the dike. I went and got him. And then he was all pumped up, and he was like, oh, he's like, no way. I was like, I shot him right in his bed, but it's possible if, in the right conditions. It's not something that happens to everybody. But it's a great thing to happen when you get one in a bed like that. But,
when you get to where you're going, what's your approach for getting up and down a tree quietly? How do you do it?
Okay, I have a specific system that I do. I do the same thing every time. It's the same thing I do when I shoot. Right before I tell myself a specific thing, there's a checklist I guess you do, and it's just the way I settle in. But I have my stand and my sticks, and I use bungees just like everybody else does that ties them on and everything else so they're quiet.
What do you got them on?
My Lone Wolf, I put them on the back like they're clip-on normal, like in the actual
So
thing.
you're just running the straps off the
Yep,
stand?
I have the Lone Wolf straps, like the padded straps that you put on, and then I have the bungees that go around because I do have a Badlands Monster fanny pack that I use, which is right around your waist, and it allows you to carry the stand of sticks on your pack, but also keep everything right here so you don't get the extra backpack weight, like if you have your backpack or whatever on you.
Yeah.
But I take all my clothes and backpack them, strap them, bungee them to the stand. But when I get to the tree, the first thing I do is I undo the bungees quietly. I take the bungees off. I put my clothes off to the side because I'm going to obviously put those on less because you're about to get sweaty or, whatever it is you're going to do. And then I have 2 ropes. I have both of them I put off my belt buckle. And I walk up the tree with my sticks. And I usually the first two I can put on staying on the ground.
Do you use a lineman or a harness or anything?
No, I probably should, but I don't. Not at all. But the first 2 sticks I put on from the tree, and then I carry the next 2 up with me, and they're all stealth stripped.
Do you want a water?
No, I'm good actually.
Okay.
I just had it for a minute, but my stuff is stealth stripped from Lou. And I mean his stuff is great. It's been on there for probably 4 or 5 years now, and it's still going strong. And it makes it super quiet, so I don't got to worry about any clanking. I keep my actual buckles in my pocket because I found that's the easiest way to not have them either fall off. Sometimes they'll fall off the Versa button, hit the ground or whatever, so it's just easier for me. Once I got the stick there, I just pull it out, loop it on, loop it across, and cinch it down. But I carry...
you carry the whole... all the straps and
I
everything?
carry the straps in a separate pocket, but it's only 2 because you put your first 2 on from the ground level. So I can put them both on from ground level. I don't got to get up for the second one to put it on. I can put them both on.
You're physically removing the straps and the buckles from 2 of them?
Yeah. Okay. You know how when you first walk up to, I first walk up to a tree, I put the buckle on the first stick, wrap it around. I'm on the ground. Boom. Grab the second buckle out, put it on the second stick. I know the difference in
So you're carrying those all in a pocket?
Yep. Yeah, well, usually my backpack is what I have them in separate.
And
it keeps them quiet, and you know what I mean? I usually roll them up so they're like in a perfect little roll.
Sure.
It just makes them easier to get them on and off. And then I carry 2 sticks up with me in the tree, and they're really lightweight. And I just grab one buckle out, and I put the third one on, and I have a certain spaced out spot, or however many I'm going to use. If I use 3, sometimes I use 2, sometimes I use 1, sometimes I don't use any. But if I'm going 4 sticks up, that's what I do. And while I'm on the ground, when I set the first one up, I'll tie my stand to one of my ropes on one of my sides. My other rope I'll have on the other side, and I'll have that tied to my bow. And when I go up the tree with all my sticks, I'll get to the top, got the last stick tied on. I reach up and I grab my bow, or my one with my stand, and I slowly pull my stand up, and I set my stand up, lock it in, stand in my stand, make sure it's all good. I reach down with my other rope and grab my bow, pull my bow up, and then if I have a bow hanger or whatever in my pocket, I just screw it in, hang my bow, and I'm all the way up the tree. Usually it's in one motion. So that way it's one, I get everything up there, one solid motion. Then I usually descend the tree quietly, come down, and I'll take a break down there because it's early, and so I'm not sweating, dying. I'll take a drink or something like that, and I'll get dressed, and then slowly climb back up my tree. And sometimes I'll take a break up in the tree. I'll just go down, grab my clothes, and then hurry up and get up in the tree. And
so
get
you're
dressed
keeping
up
your
there.
clothes in that fanny? Or
bungee?
Or
I bungee them to the stand.
I was going to ask you how you're bringing your layers.
Yeah. I'm usually like.
So you hiking in just usually a pair of pants and a.
Sometimes shorts and a t-shirt and boots. Sometimes depends on how hot it is, but most of the time it's just a pair of pants and a t-shirt, or a base layer t-shirt. Obviously, if you see me now, like everything I have is Under Armour. It's not that I'm an Under Armour spokesperson. It's just I like the the stuff works for me for what I like it for. And there's other stuff out there, you know, that you can use, but until I wear out my Under Armour stuff, there's no reason for me to go out and buy new stuff and spend money, you know what I mean?
Yeah, technical clothing is such an advantage.
Oh,
I've been
it's
having
awesome.
that conversation with Dan.
It's awesome. I know Dan, he doesn't care.
Yeah, no, he doesn't.
He'll hunt in
4 sweatshirts.
No, he will hunt in one sweatshirt at -10 degrees and freeze. And I don't know how the guy does it.
I don't know how he does
came
either.
He came here scouting when we did a workshop in Michigan, and everybody is in like hats, like Carhartts, just bundled right to the gills. And Dan's in a pair of blue jeans and a flannel t-shirt, like a flannel like shirt, like not even like a super warm flannel.
And he just looks super comfortable.
No, dude, the whole time. I even think he like unbuttoned it for a minute to like get some air because he was like dying. Because I mean, you know, and if you've ever scouted with Dan, like he's not a slow walker whatsoever. I mean, the guy
did this winter. And
Dan's
I saw
not a
the same
short
thing.
guy. He's a long-legged fellow, so he like gets moving as he goes. So you got to keep up.
It was single digits, and he had a beanie hat
Oh
on.
yeah, probably wasn't even on his ears or anything.
No, it wasn't on his ears.
No.
My buddy's like,
No.
"What's wrong with that?"
Yeah,
guy?
he don't. That's. I mean, that's Dan though.
It's
I mean, like
crazy.
he's. But I mean, I'm not as bad as Dan, but I'm kind of like the same way, to be honest with you. Like when we're at the car and everybody's like bundling up to walk, and I'm literally like in a pair of blue jeans and like an Under Armour cold gear compression top, and that's it. Walking out, and they're like, "How are you?" Like, and it's cold. Don't get me wrong, but 4 minutes into the walk, I'm comfortable. My hands are warm, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm pretty good. Like, if you wear a hat, you're going to sweat. So, it's for that purposes, I understand it. If you just keep moving, you keep your body moving, you know, and go. But, yeah, I mean, just depends. I mean, that's just my system that I use. For me, it works pretty good, you know, and helps me get up a tree quietly. And a lot of times I can do it one time. That's it. One time up. That's it. No, I've got to come down. And when I take them down, I got the 2 ropes, so I let my bow down, untie it, move my bow off to the side a little bit so it's well away from everything else, and then I will take my stand, slowly let my stand down, and then when my sticks, as I'm coming down each step, I take my sticks, you know, I let all the whole length of the rope go, and then just kind of toss it off. So, you know, I'm usually hunting some marshy stuff, so it's kind of soft on the bottom and just hits the ground, until I'm all the way there, and then I take all my pegs off. I count every single one of my straps, so I make sure they're there, because I've had them fall off before, and then you lose one. So I count them all, make sure there's 5 or 6, however many I'm using, put them all in and rolled up, put them in the spot that I do, zip them up, stack all the sticks on, all my stuff together, bungee it on, and then walking out. I mean, it's a specific system, but I'm anal about specifics anyway.
How long do you think it takes you from when you're getting to the base of the tree? I mean, it's not a race, obviously.
No, but I've done it so many times
Right.
now that, I mean, to me, doing it quiet and effective, I mean, it can't be 5 minutes, if that.
Really?
I don't even think it's that long. A lot of times.
We're just boom, 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 boom.
It's you know, quietly, however fast. Okay, this is what I always say. However fast you can do it and remain quiet and not spook the deer is as fast as you need to be.
Right.
So if it needs to take
20
you
minutes for
15 minutes or 20 minutes to do your job,
Yeah.
then do it that way. If it takes you 5 minutes, then do it that way. But, I mean, it literally, honestly, doesn't. If I take 15 minutes, that's a long time.
So this is all new to me.
Yep.
So
you're learning.
right now, anytime I'm going out and doing anything, I'm taking my whole setup, and I'm usually going up a tree or something.
So you're practicing.
Yeah,
getting
and
down.
I'm at about 15 minutes right now.
Is your stuff self-stripped
Well, the stuff that I'm
or hockey taped or something along that lines?
working with right now won't
Yeah.
be the exact stuff that I'm working with come this fall.
Okay.
But I mean, in some cases and I may have to work with this stuff. I don't intend to. I have the stuff to do that.
Put it some sort of silencing
I have
stuff.
a couple different options here that I'm playing with.
Yeah. I noticed that. It looked like lizard skins down at the end.
I got a handful of different.
Yeah.
I got about 4 different options.
I noticed those bat wraps anywhere as I used to play a lot of ball, but, you know, I always thought that too, the same thing. But you, at least if you have something that deadens out
right.
the sound, that's what matters.
I'm at like 15 minutes right now, and I discovered this weekend that's still until I get what you just said, everything wrapped, which I just started wrapping some stuff. That's got to be addressed. And then I need to continue to do it. Because 15 minutes was too fast last weekend because I made 2 noises that would have been a done deal. And I recognize that. And that's why I'm doing that stuff now.
See, I only have on my stand, I have contact points that are done on my stand. Because that's the only thing that makes noise for me is the contact points. That's it.
Sure.
Otherwise, I don't, the sticks now a different story because, they can be really loud.
Right.
But the stand itself is just contact points.
Right.
And it's easier. It's not that bad.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, maybe I'm faster than other guys or maybe slower than some, or it just depends. But it just, for me,
well,
I've been doing the lone wolf stand though in this way. See, 2006 was when I first bought my lone wolf, so 12 years now.
Right.
The same setup.
Right.
You know what I mean? The same setup, same everything. So
That's
for me,
crazy.
Yeah.
And
I'll never forget what I paid for them too, because my dad even told me, "You're nuts." They were $299 when they first came out for just the stands. And I bought 2 of them. And I remember my dad. I was married at the time, and I remember my dad's like, "Dude, she's gonna kill you." And I was like, "Gotta have them." He's like 2, and I'm like, "Yeah, because what if one of them breaks?" You know what I mean? Like I remember saying that, but I bought 1 set of sticks. But I remember walking out of there almost with like $1,000 because the sticks themselves were like $200 for 4 sticks because you can only buy a 3-pack, and then they sold the other one separate, and it was like $50.
3 of them now is like $200.
Yeah, you can buy a 4-pack for $189. But that's normal prices for if you buy them from the store. And I get coupons for Lone Wolf every so often, $50 off, $75 off, $100 off all the time. But I haven't bought anything from Lone Wolf since 2012.
That's awesome.
Even though
that's the testament to
their stuff, but it's the original gear too. Like I told you, I picked up a stand and sticks the other day, 4 sticks, and the newer Assault 2 that's 10 pounds for $125. I couldn't say no to it.
Right.
I mean, that's, even if I want to turn around and sell it right now, which I'm not going to. It's one of my kids' stands. That's the whole reason why I got it. But yeah, it's just something that you refine and get down.
Yeah, I need a better.
But 15 minutes that's it. 15 minutes. That's nothing. You know what I mean?
That's what I. I need to account for that right now.
Yeah, that's it. That's all. I mean.
And probably by the time the season starts,
early part of the season gets dark at 9 o'clock, 9:30. You know what I mean? Until we get the time change. So what's 15 minutes? Right. You know what I mean? 15 minutes is nothing.
Right.
The most important part is getting to the tree. Once you get to the tree, I mean, you have to realize I'm here. I haven't blown that deer out of here. I haven't heard him that you know of. You haven't blown him out that you hear of anything.
Take your time.
Yeah, you might as well take your time. He's not getting up to the last hour anyways. I mean, for the most part. You can pretty much bank on that part. Like at last hour and a half hour, he's not getting up anyway. So you might as well just take your time, because all you're going to be doing is getting your ass sore sitting in the seat.
How close are you getting? Does it just depend on what topography you're in, or do you have like a
specific range that I shoot for? Well, I mean, it does have a lot to do with the distance that you can go back and forth from a stand. From the bed, like if he could see, has a lot to do with it. But I mean, obviously the closer the better. I'm going to get as close as I possibly can to that deer.
Right.
And that's where a lot of what I'm doing now is explaining that when we go in the spring, all the leaves are gone. So you get to see from that bed, if you sit in that bed, you get to sit down and see how far that deer could see if all the foliage was gone, what he could see from his line of sight. So that dictates to me how far that I need to get to him based upon if we start losing leaves or whatever, and I know where that bed's at, so I can say, okay, listen, this is a late October bed that I know of. It gets hot during that time. I'm losing leaves. So I don't see as far as I normally, or he's going to see farther than he normally would if it was October 1st when everything's up. So I might have to hang back a little farther than what I would like to just to stay out of his line of sight, or maybe I don't hang my stand as high. Maybe, for whatever purposes. And the tricky part of that is if the thermals, you have to get to a certain height based upon the thermals, or your wind pull is a different story. Then, to beat it, because sometimes you could be at 18 feet and the thermals are pulling right to him, and you get up 22, 24 feet and they're blow right over his back. Or if you're playing an off wind, whatever it might be perfect for your situation. So it just depends, and that's what I use as a basis of like, okay, look, I see where the two directions he might exit out would be here and here. Let's cover both of those. Okay, the brush line goes all the way, at 60 yards, his visibility is he's good for 60, but at 70, 80, he's like, he can't see. Like, I got him, then that's where I'll be. If I can push it to 50, 60, then I will. If I can't, inside of 50 yards is,
crazy. Yeah, you're right in there.
Yeah, that's like Dan Sneaky. You know what I mean? Like that's tough to do. It's hard to get that close to him and set up a stand. So it's a little harder. But anywhere from, really, it's wherever he's gonna make it to in daylight hours. If he's making it 125 yards away in daylight hours to you, where you can get a shot at him, then by all means, 125 yards is where it's good. If he's only making it 75 yards from the bed, you gotta be in that. You gotta be in that range from him. You gotta be 75 yards or in from him.
A lot of it's just based on mindset too of what you saw the year before. But
yeah, or if you're sitting in an observation stand and you're watching that deer move, and he's not getting up to the last half hour of daylight, and he's moving 50 yards. Some deer get up, stretch, ain't got no rhyme or reason of why they're just taking their own time, chewing the cud, whatever it is, to get to where they're going. Some deer get up, stretch, and they just start walking. It just depends. I've seen it, for the most part. They don't just steady beeline, but like he's making 100 yards in 10 minutes. It's possible that they can do it that way. And, because he's comfortable. If he gets up in daylight hours, he's comfortable enough to think that there's nothing around. That's what, he's basically saying, okay, cool, it's time to go. It's safe for me to get up and go. And you'll notice, if you ever watched a deer in his bed, his ears, that last hour, he all of a sudden, you could see him almost getting antsy. Like, he's looking around and he's listening. His ears are perk up. You'll see his head popping up and he's like looking around. You could see him. And then even when he stands up, he's like, he's standing in his bed, but he's like surveying the whole scene, like what's going on. He's wanting to be comfortable. And then that tail flick, and you can almost count 1001 and that deer's walking. If you say a tail flick, you're good. That's why my dad's always told me that for a long time. And it's, watch all the videos.
Yeah, what is that?
That deer takes a stop, anything, it doesn't matter. And you see that tail flick, it's going to start moving again. They almost always flick that tail before they start moving. So if you're wondering if a deer's got you busted, and that deer's like standing at alert, and all of a sudden you see a tail flick, breathe a sigh of relief, because that deer's about to start moving. So be ready and prepared.
Yeah, I wonder.
That's just something that I don't know what it is about it.
I wonder if they even consciously do it.
I don't know. Maybe it's like an eye blink, an involuntary muscle thing. But it's almost like, I'm telling you, look back at all the videos that you could pull up, and there's always a tail flick before a deer starts moving. Always. It's like, I don't know. It's just something that I picked up on a long time ago. My dad told me about, Stu, and same thing. I've always seen it. Every video, watch them. I'm telling you, deer tail flicks before it moves, and then it starts walking.
Dude, that was awesome. We just did 2 hours and 40 minutes, and I know we
still
could do
a ton. We could do more.
Well, I want to do this again.
Well, of course, I told you.
Again and again.
Yes, dude, I told you already. I'd love to come down.
Yeah, I want to provide more of this content and information.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot still that I would like to touch on personally, that I think a lot of people would love to hear about. Specifics of a lot more in detail of maybe some specific situations that I've encountered,
For sure.
what I've seen, how I would go about setting up a stand with some, like maybe we could even run through some scenarios that I would just for here, for Michigan, in that frame, because I know a lot of people, there's so many questions that you have when it comes to bed hunting.
Well, let's do this. Let's plan on maybe September.
September what? Because I'm going to be in Wisconsin.
Oh, that's right. Well,
September 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, I'll be in Wisconsin.
Let's try to do one right before season again.
Awesome.
And
sounds great.
The guys wanted to join tonight, but it was just a chaotic day for everybody.
No, that's cool. Yeah.
we'll get a couple guys together right before season starts.
That'd be awesome.
And do another
Plus,
podcast.
You're already itching before season to get cranking. So
Well,
it's
you
what
saw
better
what
to
I
do,
was doing when you pulled in
I
here.
was shooting waiting for you today. That's what I was doing. I was my two kids. I wasn't specifically shooting, but they were, and I was sitting down with them, getting them zeroed in. My son's he's using a crossbow this year, because he's 12 years old. He's not. I mean, I don't think he's strong enough to pull a bow back and have the maximum killing efficiency yet. He's a big boy, but freehand 30 yards, just drilling a dot like that. And I was like, that's it, bud. That's all you need. Like, Dad, that's good. If you can shoot 30 yards, that's all Dad needs you to. We're going to be good.
Hell yeah. Is there anything you want to say or touch on or mention or shout out before you?
Well, I mean, you know that I've made a mention to it a couple of times, but From Bed to Dead, we have a Facebook page. I'm working on a website right now. I'm actually meeting with a lady tomorrow. That's our web designer for the page. And we have a YouTube channel. But for right now, we're hoping to get as many people as we can to follow us on Facebook. And, it's still early in the processes, so we don't have bunch of kill stuff, but we do have a few Facebook live feeds that we've done where we've specific examples of a bed or bedding and like, so we can visually show people what's going on and some of the scouting that we've done. And we just hope that a lot of the followers will come and support it. Doesn't cost anything. We're not asking for donations, nothing like that. Like, this is just something that we're doing, pretty much out of my own pocket. And we just want people to support us and to come and check it out because it's the real world hunting aspect. It's all Michigan. There will be on the DVD, there's going to be a couple hunts out of state, but for the most part, it's all based on Michigan and questions, answers. We, send us shout outs, to ask us if anything specific. Well, I'm usually on there as much as I can as long as possible. If you send something to me, I usually get to it pretty quick, or the other guy that I'm working with, his name's Spencer. And then we got another guy from the Hunting Beast. You said you keep a pretty good tab on there. You ever heard of a guy named Dirt Nap Giver from Michigan?
No.
Yeah, well, you need to take a look on there and read. He gets a wall like mine.
Really?
And he's all public land, but he's on the west side of the state. And he used to be a really secluded person, and most of us big buck hunters are. In the last couple of years, him and I have been talking more and more, and we decided to come out,
cool.
And share into things. And he's a part of it, and we just want people to come and support us and check it out. And it's if you're all about the beast and you're all about stuff like that and learning and bed hunting and learning about that kind of thing, it's right up your alley.
Yeah, there can't be enough platforms like that.
No, and that's what I say. Like we support the hunting public. We support Behind the Bow. We support Todd. I think his last name's Prince or Prinks or something. Like, he's from the Beast. He's from Wisconsin with WKP. We support those guys. I mean, we're anybody that's preaching the message, basically. I mean, we're 100% out there, liking their page and being a part of it. And we just ask that as many people as can come to ours, do the same thing. And hopefully, I'm going to try to get your link to your podcast and put it up on our thing, too, so we have it.
I will.
We're getting a one for the Beast, too, that I did with them guys in Extreme Whitetail Tactics and Mario. And hopefully that every time we get to do this, we can promote each other's stuff, because I think this is the kind of stuff that people want to hear. This is what people want to learn from. And just I'm real appreciative for having me out. I know it was a long drive, but we got family lives and taking out of the day, and it's just it's nice to talk whitetail. And then I appreciate you saying all the nice things that you said. I'm just a normal guy. Like, I know I might have killed a few deer, and but I'm just a normal person trying to kill another big buck, the same as you are this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not much different for me. So.
Well, I'm glad you made the drive over. I'm glad we got to do this, and I look forward to doing it again.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. I want to say a special thanks to all the Patreon guys that have been funding this show. If you go to our website, there's actually a a banner and a link that says support the show, and that's extremely helpful for us going forward to be able to continue to pay for the platform to do these podcasts. And once again, I'm really appreciative of that. And then also anybody that wants to support the show in another manner can go to iTunes or whatever platform you listen to this podcast on and give us a ranking and a review. So thanks for listening.